So if I was to tell you that Home Depot is willing to put up a fence from 79th Street all the way up to
I didn't know either, so.
Yeah, because normally,
Do you want me to
Country
return this
Lane
so I can go upstairs and get one?
at a cost,
Blocks, isn't it?
huh?
I don't,
Isn't that 4 blocks?
because it's.
All the
Because
way
the
around,
camera is-
fence,
all right,
decorative
okay, so then-
fence.
But he just asked me to turn
He
the
just
sound
got the
on, so I
pricing
did
to me.
that.
It's either gonna
So
be
normally
40,000
when
or
you get it,
70,000
It's
for the
already
whole
together
thing.
in
One
two
thing,
pieces.
yes,
Yeah, I got it.
that's how we
70,000
normally
what?
do it, but somebody had. ordered
Fence we were
something
talking,
that
remember
was
the beautification,
Yeah.
I'll
I
call
didn't
it
hear
the
I didn't hear the last word after 40 and
40 to
recording, so
70,000, depending on
I had
with
no clue,
what
'cause I
we
said,
were to
"Maria,
go
it didn't
with.
work." She said, let me show you why,
So I just did a rough calculation, that comes out to approximately, and again, don't hold me to this, about a little less than 2,000 per resident.
Oh,
79th Street going
Scotty?
north.
All the way to Plainfield, and then from
Scotty?
Plainfield
Brian.
back
Good
towards
to see you,
Country
good.
Manor.
Really? So we'd have a uniform look on that corner. That really looks shoddy now.
I know, we're working on it, so I just got that information, but we're gonna see what's,
I like it to be something where you can't see through it.
yeah, it's a solid
About 30
fence,
seconds,
PVC.
everybody.
Yeah, so, but anyway, we'll get to that when we get there.
Sylvia's coming tonight, isn't
yeah, she's gonna be a couple minutes late, she said.
he? Belzak, I think, is in,
Tom is out.
he's on vacation, yeah.
It's in Arizona.
Oh, yes, I see.
Program, I know it's the road
Well, you were on the other side, I didn't see it before.
See you in a little-
when I
sure
was
it'll be here.
talking with you.
Have these projects.
All right, we all set with the cameras in the back?
Yeah, it's the second, I believe it is.
Oh, I didn't check the date. I thought she was talking about this coming Thursday.
No, next week it is. The third, he's right, Thursday the third.
No, I know, but I'm with the other sheet.
Oh, no, they're gonna, I think they're gonna.
Should be about 42.
Pretty much.
Oh,
Okay, everybody, I call to order the Administrative Finance Committee of the Whole meeting for February 23rd. This is budget meeting number 2. Just a reminder to everybody, please speak into the microphones. Before we go into municipal services, we're going to revisit 10-4239 on public relations. But before we do that, Scott Polson wants to come up and speak for about 3 minutes on the lights on Portsmouth. Please come on up and take the microphone.
As you said, I represent Portsmouth Condominium Association, and we have 13 streetlights on our street in the public parkway that were installed, I believe, when the development was originally built back in 1973. The light poles have deteriorated to the point that some of them just fall down into the sidewalk area or into the street. We have maintained as many as we possibly can, and we have all but 2 working right now. But it is a danger, and because it's in the public parkway, I'm asking for the city to consider replacing those lights.
Are they part of the budget right now?
They are being presented in the budget, under, I believe it's.
In the capital
Capital, yes.
projects.
Where are you again? You said Portsmouth?
Portsmouth, between Sawyer and Frontage Road. One of the concerns that our homeowners have is, because we're one of the only streets in Darien that allows 24-hour parking on the street, we're allowed to park on the west side. People from the east side have to cross to the west side to get their car. We're just worried that if we reduce the number of lighting, or number of light poles, that it may be more dangerous for people to cross, or people going to their cars at night. We have a lot of single people that do utilize the street parking.
I
Just
think
to
for
expound
you-
on,
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I'm sorry, just to expound on the scenario, the street lights are located within the right-of-way slash parkway, and the power is being fed back to the individual units. So it's really a unique situation of where the power from the right-of-way is being tagged back to the buildings on a common, I'll call it a common meter is probably the best way to put it.
And for years, the homeowners association had maintained those lights, and when we talked to Scott and Dan and I looked, we started questioning why the homeowners were doing that, because they are in the right-of-way and the city-owned property, which has prompted the discussions with Scott and the association about the city trying to replace those and requesting that in the budget. So that's how it's came about after all these years.
And we're talking replacing all 12, or how many lights?
There's 13.
13?
I'm not sure it was in the budget if we had targeted 12 or 13, but if there is a number in there that we went and looked at them and figured
And for about 35,000 from what I remember?
that is correct.
Okay.
I mean, Portsmouth itself in the last 2 years has spent almost $500,000 making upgrades to the property. New driveways, new driveway entrances, sidewalks on our property, windows, doors, landscaping, drainage. You know, so we had this in our budget, and then I just questioned why we were taking it out of our money and why we're paying to light up a public street. That's why we approached the city.
And this scenario as well is a bit of a safety concern as well, because you do park on a street versus any other area. of
Tom, your
area.
mic, I'm sorry, pull a little bit closer there.
It's also, excuse me, a safety concern as well, because you do park on a street and you have residents crossing back and forth, where in other areas of Darien, that is not the case, so.
And we actually have had a resident hit at one point.
Have we ever gone back to look at the original concept of how it ever came to be like this?
It's unknown. Well, we did look
Have
at,
any records at all?
and not in respect to the street lights, no.
It just shows them on the building plans and the construction plans, but the development agreement, we were looking for ownership, it didn't call out. And normally, again, in our right-of-way, they would be ours, so how it got crossed to the association caring for those and maintaining those, I don't know, it's been a long time, but.
Basically, that's it. I thank you for your time.
Scott, thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.
Coming.
And Scott, we're going through some of the operations, and that will be on the discussion, but much later this evening, just so you're aware.
No
Okay.
problem. Thank you.
And we'll get back to you, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, let's go to 10-4239 under Public Relations.
Page is that?
That's page 22.
Alderman Shower, before you go there, I guess I would just request, Tina just got here, Alderman MacGyver said she's on her way, and we felt it was important enough to discuss with more aldermen last week. Would it make sense to wait
Want me to hold
until she, you said Sylvia's still
Yeah,
coming?
Sylvia called me that she was running a little bit late, so
Okay.
she will be
Brian?
here.
Let's
And
go.
Tina just got here, I think, just based on what we were saying last week, it would seem to make sense.
No problem. Let's go into municipal services then, and then we'll come back to page 22 once everybody's here. That's no problems. Let's start with page 42 in municipal services. We're going to look at, excuse me, we're going to look at the budget under 42, and let's start with personnel and salaries. Our budget for salaries was $545,000. We came in at $513,000. Our overtime we budgeted was $75,000, and we came in at $68,000. Both of those categories we ended up saving $39,000 in. Under benefits, we budgeted $350,000, and we came in at $310,000. We were lower across the board on that. Under operating costs, our total budget was $488,653, and we came in at $468,93, a savings about $20,000. Most of it's because of vehicles and gas and oil. We saved about $15,000 there. Under contractual services, if you take a look and we go down to residential concrete program, you're going to see no budget, but under actual is $24,625. That is a wash. Whatever the cost is, we charge it right onto the to the residents, and we put it as a cost here. Under drainage projects, we ended up basically coming flat at $45,000, and under tree trimming, we're actually $8,000 more versus where we're at of $126,000, but we came in at $135,000. That entire section, we were up $33,000, but again, almost $25,000 is because of the concrete program. Under capital, if you take a look at it, $265,000 was our budget, and that's where we actually came in at. But if you take a look at FYE 17, we're looking at a requested amount of $608,000. For that entire area under expenditures, we budgeted $2,235,000, and we're anticipating coming in at $2,168,000 of savings of $67,000. But as we go to FYE 17, we're looking to go up to $2.498 million. Any questions on this so far?
Couple of comments again, Ted, as I usually do, where I'm comparing where we're at actually versus what you've just been reviewing, just
Please.
for the benefit of the staff, just to make sure some things were looked at. I know some things hit expense-wise a little bit later, and I'm just looking at the numbers through January 31st at this point. There's a couple things, IMRF projecting at $123,000 through January. That was only $42,000 roughly.
A big drop.
Yeah, Paul, Brian, Marie, I know you guys have been re-looking at things, but you're still comfortable with the 123 you've got in the budget, I'm assuming?
Yeah, typically, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, because we charge some of the salaries off to MFT, we may also charge some of these benefits. We might need to adjust this to reflect the estimated actual number. But that one, sometimes during the audit, I think, or as preparing for the audit, we kind of reallocated those numbers.
Yeah, Marie, you could probably speak a little bit better to it. I believe we've been allocating now all of the benefits on a monthly basis rather than a year-end basis.
That's correct. Each month we've been allocating the benefits as a part of the ending when we're closing the financial statements.
But then I would anticipate we would be closer to that number. What I'm saying is we're
Yeah.
only at 42,000 versus a budget of 129 and a projected of 123. If we're doing it on a monthly basis, I would expect us to be closer to the 123 that we're actually projecting.
We'll look at that.
Okay. Yeah, again, I don't expect immediate answers, but again, just something for staff to look at. Maintenance vehicles, again, projecting 43,000. We're at $17,000 through January. I know we get into more heavy maintenance type time of the year once you get into these winter months and everything. One item that may be a misclassification, but in the current financial statements we have a telephone expense of $2,344 that's not listed in here. We don't have any telephone budgeted in the streets budget, so my guess is it's probably a misclassification in the monthly financial statements.
Yes, we've looked at that as part of your question before from last week regarding the
Okay,
phones.
so it'll be
We've been
coming out of,
allocating- Yeah, we've been actually allocating on it on the bill, but we haven't in the budget, so we'll push it back to the admin department.
and what else? This one is probably more for you, Dan. I know it's like forestry, we budgeted 136. We're saying we're coming in at 136. That's already at 164. But I think does that tie in with the tree trimming of 72 versus the 135? I know the tree trimming, typically we get billed now coming in February and everything as they do the work, typically when the trees are dormant in January. But I noticed again, the forestry, we're already almost $30,000 over the amount we're saying we're going to come in at budget. But under tree trimming, we're quite significantly under.
Correct. We will be under slightly. We have about another $5,000 expense coming up. And please don't forget that earlier in the year, we had city council approval for an additional $25,000 to be taken from one fund and transferred to the other because of the savings from the EAB and the removals.
Well, I understand that, but then what about the increase in forestry? Because if we're already at 164, but only projecting 136, we're already over.
I'm sorry,
almost
and that's probably, I'll have to double check that. I know there was some reclasses going. I'll have to check the agenda memos that we had in the past and see if we're reclassed there. Maria, I don't know if you recall offhand. I know we had some brief discussions on that.
Let's check it, otherwise we'll be taking up time. Yeah, we'll look at that one.
And again, streetlight operating maintenance, we're budgeting and saying we're going to come in about 115,000. We're at about 58,000 through January, so we're at about half the budget through January. Again, just to make sure you're comfortable with that. And the drainage projects projected at 45,000. We're already at 48,000 at the end of January. So the projected amount is under where we're already at. And
Yeah, we're not, right,
I'm
there's
not
no
sure
more.
we're not going to have any more, but the number that's stated
Yeah,
is a little bit lower.
Correct.
And equipment, I know equipment, depending when we buy it, we're only at 71,000, but I would imagine we have more coming in shortly.
There is, yes.
That's all I have on that page.
Okay, Michael, thank you. All right, let's go to page 43. Again, just a reminder, maintenance items I'm going to rarely touch on. Again, if any of the elected officials, anybody wants to stop me and talk about something, just please cut me off. No problems at all on that. Just also another reminder, if we're voting on something, if we're going to have 6 tonight, I'm still saying that if we have 3, it would be 50%, correct?
3 is 50%.
I know,
but
the
I don't know if
point
you
is
want
that,
4.
no, if we have 3 votes yes, we'd keep it in. Would
Well, you
everybody
can't,
agree?
when you're saying when Sylvia gets here?
Correct. Everybody all right with that or not?
Well, I don't know if you want 4, considering we're missing 1 and the mayor's here. It's up to you.
We'll go that route then.
Okay.
So if we get a tie, Mayor Weaver can break the tie then. Perfect. All right, let's start with page 43. Is there anything that wants to be touched on page 43? We'll go to page 44, and let's go down to 30-4225 under maintenance and equipment.
If I can back up a little bit here, though, and I know it's under the maintenance, but the generator maintenance, City Hall, Public Works, $6,500 under administrative. Last week I
took that out.
mentioned.
Yeah, I
So
made a
it's-
correction to take it out of
So
administration.
we took it out of administration,
Yes.
so it's all located here.
Correct.
Thank you. And
And Mike, I'll have a, as we get through, I'll have a sheet that, lists all the changes
you'll
I made,
update them.
that catch us up to
Right.
date, but yeah, I did take that one out.
Okay.
Which one are you pointing at?
And the other thing that we have listed here under maintenance, and I question it, why it's not under discretionary, would be the holiday lighting Darien points that we were discussing last year as far as Christmas decorations and lighting and everything for the, I assume that's the clock tower. And then there's an additional under maintenance, because you were going down to 4225. There's additional maintenance items for,
Mike, I'm sorry, you're losing me a little bit. Which-
okay.
Holiday light Darien Point.
Okay, under 4223, because you were going right to 4225, Ted?
Correct.
Under
But you had
42,
a couple other questions, so I didn't know which way you're going with it.
yeah, well, under 4223, there's there's several items under discretionary anyway. Fuel pump maintenance, I'm not questioning that, although it is under discretionary. But the landscape lighting Darien Point, bench seating Darien Point, $5,000.
Guys, my apologies, I
Yeah.
skipped right over that when I was doing my notes, so you're absolutely correct.
And the fuel pumps, those are under discretionary too, but I'm not really questioning anything on those. But I think the other two should at least have some discussion.
The
No,
holiday
absolutely.
lighting Darien Point, you're saying is under maintenance and it should be under
Oh, yeah,
discretionary.
you're right, that should go under discretionary.
This one should go over here.
So I think all three of those fives are items that probably should at least get discussed.
So let's,
How about the entrance sign landscape maintenance, is that what you're talking about
No,
too?
no, that we've been doing every year since we put up the new signs. We've had the landscapers do the maintenance on that, so that I think we're sort of stuck with as a maintenance item at this point. Not stuck with, but I mean, it's part of it.
all right, my apologies, everybody, I did skip over that. Let's start with garage door maintenance, under 4223 for $9,500, cost share with water for 19,000. And we've already,
Correct, and the garage door maintenance is over at the Public Works facility. There's approximately, I want to say 15 doors, overhead doors. They're what they refer to as high lift doors. The doors have been rusting over the years, and we've been doing just patch-up jobs on them. It's time to replace the doors in a fashion that they'll be lasting for several years, so we're not just having a miscellaneous expense on these. This will be split between the water department. The total cost on this is $19,000 and will be split between water and the street division.
It's actually replacing them? Or
Yes.
Finally, okay.
springs to everything,
Yes.
tracks.
It's not all of them, it's the worst ones.
Gotcha.
So you got 1,500 under discretion, under maintenance, and then 9,500 discretionary.
Correct, and part of the thought process is that we did reduce the maintenance portion to 1,500, provided that the discretionary does get approved.
Okay.
How's everybody feel about it?
It's fine.
I have a question on the entrance sign. Dan, did we finish the lighting on those and those expenses are done then, the solars?
Yes, we
and the
did.
ones? Okay, because I'm seeing, originally we were testing that one solar on top of the sign, and then I saw some on the actual grounds, and the grounds are the final
Correct.
look, right?
And they do illuminate very well. They are solar.
Okay, so then that's done. The holiday lighting for 5,000, what exactly is involved with that?
Depending on the scheme of it, we were looking at theme lighting, whether it was, if you recall back at the goal setting, whether it was for Halloween, Easter, various types of lightings for these types of occasions, not just.
So it's just lights on the tower, or the businesses, just the tower?
Just the day around the clock tower,
Around
whether
the clock
it's,
tower.
whether they're, I'll refer to them as string lights, or if they're messages, like, whether it be joy or happy Halloween, something to that extent. Obviously, that would come, we would form, I'll call it a survey of what the city council would want, and whether it's for Halloween, whether it's for Easter, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so we're still gonna have discussion on the final output
Correct.
of what lights those
Yes,
would be?
even though the expense would be under $5,000, we want to just make sure which seasons the city council would like to capture, and if, additional money should be looked for the following year.
Would it be possible to have non-for-profits like Lions or Kiwanis or Darien or Rotary fund those, kind of like what we do with the city stickers?
I guess it depends on the
Well, that, yeah,
advertising.
that's more of a policy question. We had talked about that in general, either last goal setting or the goal setting before, in terms of not-for-profits, you know, and how they donate or buy things for the city. So at that point, the city was a little bit cautious about taking, and I forget the specific, what was looking to be donated. It might have been another canine, I don't recall, but, that's something for the council to further determine.
Well,
what
now,
type.
now that you brought that up, the last Thursday night, there was a board meeting of the Lions Club. And one of the things I brought up with the Lions Club, because this was actually came up last year when people were looking at the clock tower, was the idea of the Lions Club actually purchasing a bench or 2 benches for the Darien Point, and actually just saying donated by the Darien Lions Club. And I was talking to Kathy, and Kathy said that might even be a good idea for the women's club to consider. Maybe they would do a bench, Lions Club would do a bench, maybe get other organizations to do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't put the money in the budget for it, because you might have these organizations say they don't want to do it. But I was told to come back with examples of what it would look like and costs, because there was a very serious discussion the other night about the Lions Club actually doing a bench or 2, depending on the cost. So I don't know how the council feels about that, but you may have organizations like that that decide to do that.
So myself and Mr. Gombach, the National Association of Realtors has got a placemaking grant that we applied for. It's up to $3,000. We're for the benches for the point. We've been approved for it for up to $2,000, but something came up in the last week where they're saying what's supposed to happen is the National Association of Realtors cuts a check to the local association here in Downers Grove, and then that local association cuts a check to the city of Darien. Through Dan's due diligence, he found on one of the forms it says they cannot give the check to a governmental body. So I was on the phone with IAR, Illinois Association of Realtors, today to find out what we have to do. So I'm trying to get city of Darien $2,000 for those benches.
Well, I was thinking if we could cut some of that $5,000 with non-for-profits actually purchasing a bench, you know, I think that would be a nice cost savings for the city.
Yeah, I recall in the discussion the council had, I'm recalling more now, was I think the Lions Club approached the city about them doing a fundraiser for the dog, which was a little different than them, I think the organization's donating maybe funds on hand
Right.
for something for the city. So that was the difference, I think, when the council talked about it a couple years ago.
Yeah, we wouldn't do fundraising for it. It would strictly be, you know, depending on the cost. And not that we're flush with money, but the Lions Club, that was something that was discussed when the clock tower was built. The idea of purchasing a bench and having donated by the Lions Club, donated by the Women's Club, whatever. If the council, you know, if the council says no, don't do it, then that's fine, but
I guess I would bring up, this was a question I originally had when we were talking about the clock tower, and not that I'm against the idea, no matter who's paying, well, naturally, I'd rather have somebody else pay it for it rather than us, but the concept, I always was concerned that it's not really a park where you can go to sit. If you have people coming to benches and parks there, as nice a spot as it is, you are tying up parking spaces for the businesses that are there, and there aren't really a lot of parking spaces that I see. I know right now there's really only the one business there, but as those businesses fill up, are you really going to have adequate parking to go drawing people? If you have benches, now you're trying to attract people to go sitting there. Is that something you really want to do, would be my overall question before we even get into a discussion as far as how it's paid for.
That's what the bike racks are for.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I guess that's what I envisioned. I don't know that people would be flocking necessarily in their cars, but I think people that someday will be getting a coffee there or a sandwich, or maybe just taking a walk through that area. I don't know that it would, I don't think it would be a destination park for people. I don't believe.
If people go to a park and they stop and say, hey, I want a coffee or this or that, something might be the opposite. That people visit the park and say, hey, I want a sandwich. I want some coffee. So you could say it's the opposite way as well.
yeah, I mean, I'd see people walking to it, riding a bike to it, you know. If you go up and down Plainfield Road, during the summer, you see women pushing kids in strollers or families together walking with their children. It might be someplace where somebody stops off. I don't know.
Do I have impeccable timing or what? What's the item number that we're talking about? I mean, I know it's the bench, but
4223.
Page 44, yeah.
Yep.
Page 44 on the municipal
yeah.
service.
When I was looking at this, I thought that you know, I mean, that is not a park corner. I mean, it's a busy intersection, Plainfield and Cass, and I can't imagine that that's like a calm, peaceful place to sit down and do anything. And I mean, if businesses that move in there wanna, you know, if a coffee shop moves in, and you know, they wanna set up a bench. I mean, honestly, my concern is looking long-term on the budget, the fact that we're, you know, depleting our long-term, you know, resources and reserves, and we're, you know, looking at potentially getting into a deficit and, you know, 3 years out. I mean, every little bit's gonna count now. And so my general, you know, impression of these kind of things, it's nice if we had the money to spend, but I don't think we do anymore. And I think we've spent a lot of money in that corner, and it was meant to be a beautification project, and now it's been improved, and, you know, I think that there's enough investment in that particular, you know, corner of real estate in Darien.
So are you heading towards the idea of organizations like the Lions Club?
Yeah, if somebody wants to, yeah, if somebody, if the people, community benches, if people want to do that, I think that's fine. I mean, great, but again, I think that, you know, we have to start looking at these, you know, a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there. It's gonna all, you know, after a while, it adds up, and I don't think that we really have that kind of latitude anymore with respect to, you know, kind of wish projects, and that's how I see this.
Well,
Go ahead.
the idea of the lighting I like, because I drive through Westmont, I drive through other municipalities, and they always do a nice job with holidays in terms of decorating. We're one of the few communities that really don't see a lot of that. That said, that reason I went to the board with the idea of the benches was for the purpose of saving the city the cost of doing the benches. Because I think you can get several organizations. You know, I was talking to Tom Pappas. I said, how many benches do you think would go there? He said probably 4. He was envisioning 4 around the perimeter. I don't know what the individual cost is. We just see the figure of $5,000 in there. But I know there's interest on the part of the Lions. I don't know if the Women's Club would have that interest, although that may be something they want to discuss. I think it would save the city money, and it would give non-for-profits an opportunity to do something nice for the city.
I think the question is, should we, you know, if we don't get a not-for-profit, should we take it out now and only do it if there's a not-for-profit? I think that's the real question.
And I think that along the thoughts that everybody's having, and kind of where I came in with this, would be, the issue is, if, you know, when I said we would bring it to the table before it's done, that's all well and good, but I would rather take it out and then use it in the contingency fund if that's something we decide later to use.
You were questioning, though, the decoration,
The lights.
but now we're talking about the benches.
Right, so anything under Darien Point.
So you would,
So I'm thinking, as opposed to, you know, maybe someone will pay for it, maybe someone won't, but we'll put it as a placeholder. It sounds good, but then the money's there, as opposed to not having it there and then having it in a contingency, bringing it to council and then approving.
Yeah, and with respect to Westmont, Joe, I'm not even sure it's possible Westmont is paying for that, or Downers Grove in their downtown, but it's also possible they have a downtown business district or a chamber of commerce. I don't know that for a fact either way.
This is my one bugaboo, and I brought this up before in goal setting. We're real great at infrastructure, and I think that's great. Darien Point was the first time we really ever did much to enhance anything where people could say, gee, this is Darien. And we did that, and there was a lot of debate over it, but I think everybody's happy with that corner now. And that corner looks nice. And people talk about it. To sit back and say, well, we don't need to do this, you know, and let's let somebody else do that, I think that's wrong. I mean, I'd rather spend $5,000 on lighting than $8,000 on fireworks.
Oh,
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, I'm with you on the fireworks, too. I mean, there's another
Oh,
8,000.
and I agree with you, Sylvia. This is going to be real tight this year, and there's a lot of things in here that we need to take a close look at. But I think you really need to consider how people see your town when they come into, and that's what they see.
I don't think people look at a corner and say that's your town. That's what you're talking about. You're talking, you know, and I tend to, you know, I guess I would just say that, you know, we've got the Darien, the lighting, the landscape lighting, the bench, and I don't know why the holiday lighting is under the maintenance. Shouldn't that be on?
It wasn't there yet.
It
It
was
should
there,
be
okay.
over. Yeah, Mike brought
So
that up.
that's $15,000. Now, what have we spent already? Plus all the, we have ongoing maintenance there. I mean, I'm sure you have to pay for refilling, we pay for water. I'm sure we have to pay for electricity. There's gonna be, we're paying for, I think there's landscaping fees to maintain it. I mean, this is just, it gets bigger and bigger. So then the lights go out or somebody damages the bench. I mean, it all adds up. And I think we've beautified that corner, and that's what it is. I don't think of that as being, what everyone thinks is Darien. But, I think that $15,000 is, I think we've invested, how much was it, 100 and,
About 165, I think.
165,000
Sound about right.
already, plus an additional, didn't we have an additional
Little-
expense?
Yeah, Dan's saying a little more, yeah.
There was there was a developer contribution too, so it might have been 231 minus maybe 50,000 again.
right.
I know there was some.
And then I thought we had something come to council later on that we had approved for Darien Point.
I think
We
that was
painted
for
we painted the sirens. We had a
Right.
couple things like that, yes.
So,
We
a
did.
little bit here, a little bit there. I mean, if you look at Darien Point as a whole, it's a couple $100,000 and now, I think that's enough. That's enough beautification for a corner that really not all Darien residents are really taking advantage, really use. I mean, it's nice for the people that live around there. I agree. But, people in other areas may, very rarely go by, and if they do, they're just driving by.
I think the goal of it was to capture the center of town more than anything else.
Well, you got a clock tower, you
And I
got
think
the
it's not like
water
it's an
fountain.
eyesore as it is.
No, I'm
And,
telling
you know what I mean?
it's an
And it's
improvement.
something that
got
we
a
could
comment
always
on
do
this?
later. It's not
Okay.
like something we have to do
Yeah.
right now.
Guys, Dan has a comment on this.
It just, we're seeing benches in here. I just want to reiterate what this all includes. It basically included 3 benches, 2 garbage cans, and again, the garbage cans are more decorative concrete garbage cans, as well as 2 bike racks. So I just wanted to clarify that for the city for the committee this evening.
Yeah, and Ted, I guess I didn't intend on doing this right now, but maybe to give a little perspective about this, because I know it sounds maybe petty among us and maybe to the viewing audience, it was $5,000 more or less in this whole scheme of the budget, but we are going to be getting into the capital projects and everything today. And on an ongoing basis, we've generally been committing $3.5 to $4 million, a little over $4 million this year, a little under $4 million next year, and $4 million the next year. So essentially, we've been committing about $4 million a year toward roads, sidewalks, and other projects. We knew last week, I gave a little preliminary, that we all know that 3 years from now, we're not going to have enough money to continue with those funds in the capital projects. I did another quick look, and I took a look, and if we're only contributing about $1 to $1.5 million from the general fund to the capital projects, that means we have to come up with about $2.5 million from other sources. Brian was kind enough. I don't think this has gone around to the whole.
I gave you a copy, Mike. I
Right.
didn't distribute it, but we
Right.
have copies to
Right.
distribute
Okay,
tonight.
but Brian's gone through a little calculation, seeing what would happen if we increased real estate taxes by a certain amount, gas taxes by a certain amount, and potential additional sales tax on food and beverages by a certain amount. And even with all 3 of those increases, it still comes out to less than $3 million a year. So once we get to that year 4, even if we institute all of these, it's still not enough to continue our capital projects the way they are now. So that's why it's important to address these little things. I mean, 5,000 here and 5,000 there, but it's 5,000 this year, it's benches you wouldn't be replacing every year, but some of these things go on once they're in there for 2 or 3 years, and over a 3-year period, you're looking at $15,000, $20,000. So that's why the small stuff is important when you look at the whole scheme of things as we get to year 3 and year 4 out there, because I think we all hear from our constituents. I mean, we have been very fortunate, and I think Darien has done a great job, and we kept our taxes at a very low rate and for a long period of time. But we can see going out into the future that that's not likely to continue, and we're going to have to make some adjustments, and that even does not consider the state doing anything, and we all know the state of Illinois is going to have to do something. We're not projecting any of that in the numbers or anything that we're discussing. So again, just to put perspective on it, so especially for the newer aldermen, as we're talking about 1,000 and 2,000, doesn't sound like much, but it all contributes toward that potential $3 or $4 million we're looking at, assuming we feel that's what's important, maintaining the streets and the police security and everything, which I think are basically, we've pretty much all agreed those are our core projects, and that's why a lot of these little things were nibbling around the corners. But even nibbling helps in the whole scheme of things.
Okay, let's take a vote on the landscape lighting, bench seating, and the holiday lighting for Darien Point. Who would like it in? Please raise your hand.
Can you do one at a time, Tom?
Yeah.
So-
Okay.
Do them individually.
Let's start with landscape lighting for Darien Point. Who would like it in? So we got 3 and 3. Madam Mayor?
Remind me again, this is the landscape lighting that we are committed to, we talked about being committed to.
No, this is like Malibu
What
lights or
this is-
something in the
This solar too?
landscape.
Well, some of it may be solar, it's perimeter lighting, landscape lighting at best, some uplighting that'll be shining onto the trees, for example, or additional lighting that'll be shooting onto the water stream.
I'd keep it in.
Okay. Bench seating and trash receptacles, Darien Point. Who would like it in? So that's 2 votes for or against, so we'll take that out. And then finally, holiday lighting for Darien Point for 5,000. Who would like that in? 3 and 3. So we'll keep that one in. So what we're eliminating is bench seating, so we need to go back and see if anybody in non-for-profits would be interested.
But are we still open to the idea of the non-for-profits doing that?
I'm trying to remember the argument, Brian, you're gonna have to remind me. We shot down the Lions Club donating money for a dog. And there was a rationale that our police
Well-
department used for that. And it escapes me right
Well,
now.
yeah, we talked about the council meeting, and there's a difference between let's just say the women's club came and they gave the city $500 out of their funds already to contribute towards a bench. There's a difference between the women's club going door to door and putting signs in banks and actually going out and collecting and asking for money for a specific city project. That was the difference at the time.
All right.
So, one is a little more proactive, where you're actually encouraging and pushing people.
I thought the Lions Club wanted to donate the dog.
Yeah, I thought there was an
Well-
issue with the legal that we
No, they
couldn't-
wanted, if I recall, they wanted to donate the dog, but they wanted to go out and raise money in order to donate. It's not, they weren't gonna give us money on hand. They were gonna go out like they did when we did accept it
That was the
10
difference.
years ago.
Okay,
Yeah, we
that was
did
the
we
difference?
did
That's
the
what,
dog years
that's what I
ago.
recall. I
Yeah.
think there was a little bit uncomfort level of
That
people going out and pressuring citizens who are already paying taxes, who are already
Okay.
paying fees, things like that,
Okay,
versus
that's the difference.
something on hand that a group was willing to donate.
See, I mean, I'm willing to go back to the Lions Club board and show them the proposals, show them the cost, and maybe the women's club, maybe Tina wants to go to the women's club.
For the
and do
benches?
same. Yeah, for the
Yeah, I
benches.
think that's.
Could you also?
Well, we took it
could you
out, so
also
you'll
include
have
the
to do that
Rotary
now.
Club? 'Cause
Rotary.
I'm,
Yeah.
And whichever non-for-profit does it, I'll make sure we go back to the National Association of Realtors and rework the grant and then give the grant to the non-for-profit, because it would work out better for them anyway. So that you wouldn't be, the non-for-profit wouldn't be on the stick for the whole thing. We've already got it approved for $2,000. So whichever non-for-profit decides that it's gonna get the benches, I'll make sure that NAR and IAR get the $2,000 for the non-for-profit.
How about the local VFW as well, for any soldiers or anyone that's
So we got
potentially-
Rotaries, Women's Club,
Well, they're
Lions
hot
Club.
on
They're
the
trying to
issue
make
of raising
money,
money for
yeah.
a home, so I don't know if they'd be in the market to
I mean,
donate to this.
we'd be saving the city $5,000.
but if the Lions Club is willing to take the bull by the horns to do the investigation and then to share it with other nonprofits, that would be better than the burden being put on the Lions Club entirely also.
Right.
But again, just to be clear, I don't think, again, maybe you do, but I don't think the council wants the Lions Club to go out, at the corner, raise money, or things at the Jewel or the stores to raise money for something,
No,
right?
no.
Okay,
This would be from funds the Lions Club
okay,
already has.
just so everybody is clear.
Okay, let's go up to fuel pump maintenance cost share with water for $32.50. It's actually $16.25. Dan?
I'm sorry, Ted, I lost your place.
Under 4223, page 44, right above the landscape lighting of Darien Point, it's 1625. Fuel pump maintenance.
The one that's shared with water?
Yeah, it's right above the landscape lighting for Darien Point.
And why is it discretionary?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Oh, the fuel pump,
Some of these items are being mandated through the EPA or the Department of Agriculture.
so
Department
Dan,
of-
these are not really discretionary then?
Correct.
So they should actually be moved over to the maintenance?
Right, but we want to make sure we call them out to the attention because it is a requirement that's being brought on to us, yes.
Okay.
So it's been moved back to to maintenance.
Both that and the 4660, correct?
Correct, they're two separate programs.
Okay.
Is this typically an annual, or is this once every 3 years or 4 years?
At this point, it's it's the first time. I don't know if it's going to be 3 years, every 5 years. We're unsure of that at this point.
We'll move that over to maintenance. Let's go down to 30-42.
Hold on a second, Ted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one right above it, there's $1,000 already there, and then the one under discretionary was 1625. Which number
Correct.
is it?
We're
both?
combining them.
So it's 2625?
25.
Thank you.
And the pest extermination, is that a new fee?
It is,
I-
it
I
is
didn't see
new,
it
right. While it's new, we started it this year. We've had, over the last couple years, just some infestation with bugs. Whether it's been in the police department or it's been on this side.
There's a bunch about where you're sitting, Tina. There's a nest
I
over
was
I
about
think
to
I've
say, you got
seen-
rodents
Leave it
running
in.
across here, or what's the story?
So the answer is yes, it is a new program, and we have a couple different levels of it.
It's a monthly, if I'm not mistaken, it's a monthly service we've signed on for at this point.
I believe one's monthly, one's quarterly, and one's as needed on this side.
Public Works Building, you want to talk about it?
You gotta bring it up.
Just a question for you. Under Public Works Building, design cost share with water for 20,500, half two. Am I not seeing something on that?
No, there's some, what I try to do is to let the council know where Dan and I maybe didn't agree on things. Something like that, I put in there and I put a number so the council knows Dan requested it, but I did not include anything in the budget for the study to build a new building.
Any questions about that? I know you guys were talking about that in municipal services. Have you guys come to a conclusion on that, or?
We recommended this. I brought this up at a city council meeting. This wasn't a municipal service.
At a goal setting,
Goal-setting session,
Goal-setting
yes.
session.
goal setting, yeah.
And that was where we kind of laughed that night because Brian says, Dan, you got Joe to get it through for you because I brought it up. And
Well, it got on the list.
got on the list.
It didn't get in here though, but,
No,
but it
yeah.
did get, it moved on to our our list of long-term capital projects. And this is a debate, and again, God bless
Well, we've
Dan,
had
he
this
wants to,
we've
you
had
know,
this debate for
improve that.
years about public works, yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
improve that facility, and I am still not convinced that I'm convinced we don't have the money now to do this, that's for sure. But I'm not convinced, and where Dan and I don't agree on this, is the need for a new building or a significantly remodeled building. We do have maintenance costs, there's a vehicle or two that needs to go, get parked outside. Dan might have more vehicles, but this has been around for a long time. Back when I started in 2002, the city had some plans to build a joint facility there with a number of the districts, and that never worked out. There was never funding, could never agree on things. Certainly, there was an expensive proposal, but this is one of those things that's just lingering, and we'll probably, out of respect and courtesy for Dan, I'll leave it in there every year so the council could express their thoughts on it.
And again, just to, I guess, expound on that, keep in mind that we have the vehicles that we have are expensive vehicles. The hydraulic systems, the transmission systems, I believe a couple of the council members are involved with the mechanics or trucks, for example. To hard start these trucks in the winter can be a problem sometime. Whether it's from the hydraulics gelling up, the diesel fuel. Diesel fuel is not so much an issue, but there are concerns. And again, storing the equipment outside for 3-4 months while it's out of season becomes an issue. It's also efficiencies. Yeah, we try to cram equipment into our plant number 2, into our plant number 5. So now we have to basically go and get this equipment. So it creates an efficiency problem as well. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that the council
I guess
understood.
the reason I brought it up, and I continue to bring it up, is when you look at the cost of some of the vehicles. When you look at $185,000 for a new 9-ton dump truck, which we have been replacing them with the steel,
Stainless steel.
And such. When Ted was on municipal services, we talked about having a bay where we could actually wash our vehicles indoors. And So, I mean, the thought's always been there, what would it do for the maintenance of our vehicles? And again, it's probably the worst year to ask for this, considering our other costs. But, you know, somewhere down the line, we really do need to get serious in terms of looking at that facility, and what leaving these vehicles out is costing us in the long run in terms of the purchase of vehicles and the maintenance of the vehicles.
I don't know how many are out there all the time, Joe. There's a number inside, Dan. I just don't know how many of the vehicles are outside. I don't know we fit a lot in the garage, but not every piece of equipment's in the garage.
Do we have,
Correct, yes.
do we have any idea what kind of ballpark we're talking about for this facility? Is it two,
At
3
this,
million?
our goal was to be able to do something like we did with the salt shed. If you recall, we, the city, became the general contractors of the salt shed. So from that salt shed, we probably saved close to $150,000 because we did have a bid that came in with a turnkey operation. We became the generals. Do we have this opportunity? Can we do it in phases? Yes. This process right here basically describes somewhat of a need analysis. From a need analysis is the structural components, the bathrooms, for example, the steel beams that are in there. Can we extend it? The roof, again, that's obsolete. We've been doing patches on.
Dan, I'm sorry, what does obsolete mean?
The roof system that's in place currently is no longer a practice that's in place. The roof does leak a couple times a year. We do keep on patching it. To replace that roof, I believe we had a cost of close to $45,000. And really, it's a building that has steel with a skirt around is the best way to describe it. So to remodel it or expand to it, provided that the steel structures are in place today, we may have a benefit, an economical benefit to do that and add another 5 bays or so. So that part we have looked at internally, and we've brought an architect out and said, hey, we have the opportunity to put 5 bays here, 5 bays here, whether it's a wash bay, whether it's bays that maybe don't even have heat.
So I didn't understand the economic benefit. What do you mean?
As far as the economic benefit was, taking equipment, having it to be able to be housed with no elements, for example. That'd be the primary reason on
Well,
it.
I've been going under the premise that a new public works building costs between $4 to $6 million.
I'm not seeing that.
No, we're not talking that. We were talking about remodeling or adding on to what we currently have and just enhancing that. That's all I was ever talking about.
Well, it's gone full circle. There's been a lot of things talked about. I don't know the current need. If you need a 4-truck garage somewhere, that's certainly different than a new public works facility for $4 million.
Well,
Sure is.
like you said, years ago, we bought that piece of property. We were gonna go in with the school and what was it, Kathy, the Park District, and
The
we're gonna.
school districts too.
Yeah, joint facility. We eventually sold the
Township,
property
yeah.
and, because it never worked out to our advantage. But I was never looking at a brand-new facility. I was looking at possibly enhancing what we had over there, just to make it, to create additional space for storage of vehicles.
Well, it sounds like an upscale lean-to.
Basically, it is, yes,
That's what you're suggesting.
yes.
What about other municipalities? Do they store indoors as well or outdoors? And if we made like a new building, could you lease it out to other municipalities for, keeping your vehicles or, vice versa?
If we were to buy additional property, I'd say yes, but we'd probably be limited in room. Downers Grove, for example, has a beautiful facility. Recently, I've been invited out to Oak Park's facility, which I know is a little bit off the quadrant here, but we know the director is a resident of Darien as well, so he's invited me out to his facility, the Village of Woodridge. While I'm familiar with those facilities, I can tell you that 99.9% of their equipment is in-house, or I should say stored indoors.
I'm going to say right now, we're probably not going to get this to go through the budget, but this is something that I'd like to continue the discussion on. So whatever you guys got to do at municipal service, I'd like to hear a little bit more about it. So.
Well, basically what this does is puts a place marker for the study. What the study does is we would be coming back to the municipal service as well as the city council and present what this would all include. The proposal from the space needs analysis. Doesn't make sense at the end of the day. Will it be that full cost of $20,000? Probably not. We'll cut wherever we can. We would provide information to the architect whether it's plans, whether it's, you know, no, take this, put this here, whatever the case is. So we'll look for alternatives to save additionally if we could, but I want to present a best case, worst case scenario for this study.
Alderman Clistic had asked about, you know, joint use. Originally, 10 years ago, the thought was the Park District, Darien Park District might be able to store there. At the time, they were thinking maybe school buses could store there. So there, what you're talking about was what was envisioned years ago, and
Fire
it
department,
never-
the township
possibly,
also,
yeah, some other entities, which never happened.
So where's the $20,000 for the study in the budget?
I don't put, I didn't,
Is that in there?
what I
Okay.
did is I showed it so the
Okay.
council would see that Dan was asking for it,
Okay.
but I did not put anything in there for it.
We do have the backup. Obviously, we'd have to get it, and, you know, we can present the backup at the next meeting if this council will consider it.
So I didn't hear what was, so it wasn't 3 or 4 million. What was the number? I heard how much we saved doing it ourselves, but I didn't hear.
There is,
what
There
the
isn't a number.
Oh, there isn't, so we
No.
don't have any idea.
But our
Just
goal
by-
is not-
Per square foot, we don't have like a ballpark of what it costs to,
no,
something like that, okay.
I think that 20,000 was gonna give you those numbers.
correct.
How does everybody feel about this? Since we're having the discussion.
It's something we'd like to think about, but I don't think we can afford it now. Or maybe when we get to capital projects, we will.
Maybe if we go through the whole budget and we find that we are cutting some other things, maybe we can come back to it.
Okay, let's do it that way.
Let's see, no fireworks, no holiday lighting, what else? So you can come up with 20,000,
No Neighbors Magazine.
no Neighbors Magazine.
Let's go down to 30-4225. Garage floor sweeper estimated cost 6,600, cost share with, and it dropped off there, but it's 3,300.
What number are you on?
30-4225,
4225.
Garage floor sweeper.
page
Oh,
44.
yeah, the last item there.
That's share with water.
Yeah, so it's
Well,
actually 6,600, it's just this
Correct.
is half of it.
Okay,
Correct.
I see.
Any issues with it, anybody?
No.
Oh, is it absolutely necessary?
The answer is yes. I mean, it's a safety concern, especially with the oil that drips from these trucks. And with the floor, we want to maintain the floor that the city council recently approved for us. It's really, you know, we want to keep it in top shape. And wasting time with 2-3 guys sweeping it, and it's the facility itself, the concrete, you know, there's a lot of concrete. And we want to make sure that we have the ability to maintain it.
It's a beautiful new floor.
I'm sorry?
I said it's a beautiful new floor.
I didn't want to put that book on.
Oh, maybe we shouldn't have approved that, then we wouldn't have to buy this sweeper.
Even if you had the old floor,
You created a problem for
Yeah,
yourself.
right?
The old floor was really a concern.
Yeah.
You put down kitty litter to dry up the oil
Yeah.
and then sweep it up?
Yes, we do, but it gets beyond that, Madam Mayor.
All right, let's go down to 30-4243, tub grinder for 4,500.
And the tub grinder is basically a break even. This year, I believe, sales from the tub grinding, and let me go back up a minute. The tub grinding operation is all the mulch or the chips that the crews gather from the parkways, from our brush program. We then call in what's referred to as a tub grinder. This tub grinder takes the chips that we produce and mulches them again. The mulch that's produced is a quality mulch that's sold, for example, by Home Depot or some of your landscape supply yards. We have a charge for this. The charge is very minimal, and it's almost a break-even point for us. It's a great program. Last year, I know we had more chips than we knew what to do with, so we were able to get those taken away for free, but the program is very worthwhile.
And Dan, also, residents can come get, and if they want to pack up their own in bags or cans for free, they can do that.
Correct, right.
The net cost, we received about $3,600 on the sale of the chips, and it cost us $4,500 to rent the grinder, so essentially a net cost of a little under $1,000.
Depending on how many times we'll grind it, yes, this year I believe it's about $900 more because we did grind additional chips, especially due to the nice weather that we had.
Plus, Dan,
mild
if you
winter.
did not grind it and you had the strips, you'd have to pay to get rid of that because nobody wants that.
Correct, yeah, we were
There would have
fortunate enough
been
to get
another cost
to give away
associated with that.
a certain amount, but then they didn't want to take any more either.
Life of a tub grinder.
No, we rent it.
This
We
is a
rent it.
rental
This
unit.
is just the rental of them.
Yes.
It's very expensive to rent.
Dan,
by the hour.
the sewer jetting, is that where we utilize the Vector truck from the county? Is that a rental? Sewer jetting, the 15,000?
It's right below there.
That's a maintenance, right, and that maintenance, our crews have developed great relationships, for example, with DuPage County, the sanitary district, who has a jetter slash camera truck.
Okay.
So there's opportunities when they have an opportunity and they come and help us, you know, they've done that. While at the same time, we've asked them to produce invoices, they have not done so. So there is some reciprocation there with the departments, call it, you know, DuPage County and the city of Darien. In conjunction with that, we also have a fair share that we will contract out, whether there's only really 3 companies out in the vicinity that have this type of equipment to be able to do this maintenance for us. So this is basically this $15,000 has been in the budget for the last several years. I'm going to probably go out and say 4 to 5 years.
So back to the tub grinder, nobody has any issues with that, correct? Okay, let's go down to Darien Historical Society Christmas lighting, high lift rental, $650. Again, this is something we do every year.
Well, we've started this operation approximately 3 years ago, and the primary reason for it is the equipment that we have, the tree has outgrown our equipment, so we have to rent what's referred to as a cherry lift, cherry picker, to be able to put the lights on for the Christmas tree lighting ceremony.
And then take them off, so you are really
Correct.
renting it twice.
Does it make sense to continue on that if we're doing the lighting of the clock tower? Do the lighting of the tree and the clock tower?
Sold that to the Historical Society.
They're the ones, yeah, I know we pay for
Yeah,
this
yeah,
expense.
they're doing that. This is an assistance we gave because, again, as Dan said, we can't get to it with our equipment anymore, so they're I don't know that they're kind of mutually exclusive, I think, but it's up to the council.
Their lighting, correct? It's the Historical Society's lighting, and we just provide the lift, or the cost for the lift.
Correct.
Yeah, they buy the lights.
Any issues with it?
Well, well, I mean, if Darien Point is the center of the city and we're putting in holiday lights there and, you know, that's where the holiday I mean, this is like giving $650 to a, you know, a non-for-profit, correct?
Correct.
So if other non-for-profits came and said, hey, this is what we want to do for the holidays, would you give us $650 too?
Okay, let's vote on it. Who would like
Well,
it
it's
in?
our only tree, though, for the city.
We got the bushes around the clock tower now.
All right, let's take a vote on this, please. Who would like this in? Okay, so that's 4-2. We'll keep it in. Let's go to page 45. Let's go down to 30-4257, R&R speed limit signs and uprights for $10,000.
It's basically part of the sign, some of the signage, if you look at some of our signage, it's basically has still what's referred to as channel poles. The channel poles are green. Those are pretty much deteriorating by rust. In conjunction with that, some of the signs have faded and don't even meet some of the requirements of the MUTCD. Again, this is a maintenance item, so basically what we'll be coming in is replacing signs throughout town with the black powder-coated, what's referred to as telespar, along with the updated signage and proper reflectivity.
That's not maintenance, it's under discretionary.
Correct. It's additional signage than just maintenance.
So it's a new cost.
Yes,
And it's replacing.
So it's replacing the bad ones.
yes.
Okay.
Where are these signs? Are these when you say the uprights, you're not talking about the ones that come, the arm that comes out over the street?
No, these are the actual sign poles.
Okay.
Speed limit 25 signs, for example, slow children signs, things of that nature, regulatory.
Pretty
and
much
non-
all the city signs,
Yeah.
Dan, right, are on those types of posts that we have.
Correct,
And what do we have to do? We have to replace the post and the sign?
yes.
Well, once we replace them, they're going to last for how many years?
Minimal of 12, 15 at a minimal. I mean, the black powder coated That's where we've constructed the mailboxes out of, and we've been using them. Matter of fact, for the Darien signs, street name signs, we used a lot of the, that was a little different, but it was the same black powder coated. Those were just thicker. We're not going with those thicker poles.
I'm trying to think of where one of these is black powder coated. All I can envision right now is the silver light poles. Where are these black coated?
The black powder coated ones are on basically every corner with a street name sign plate.
Those signs?
Yes,
Okay.
but that's a little thicker material that was specifically utilized for those signs.
Wait a minute, aren't these the new signs we just put?
No, I'm just giving you an example, but those signs are to have the black powder coated bars or uprights. And I think we put those 7 years ago now, and there's been no issues with them. So it's the same type of material we're using, but it's basically being used to replace the green channel poles that are green channel poles, as well as some of the regulatory signs that have faded.
So are you moving that $10,000 over to maintenance? What are you doing?
I could move it there. It's really irrelevant, Dan. A lot of the signs too, you see they're bent, they're rusted, they're just in bad shape. And normally I could move this over.
Is it something that we would be doing year after year?
No.
I guess would be, if it's only a one-time shot, I guess I'd leave it in maintenance, and then we get to look at it again next year if the amount comes
Well,
out.
it's not
Does-
maintenance, it's under discretion.
So Dan,
Alright.
we should
No,
really
I'm
move
sorry.
this over to
I'm s-
maintenance.
I'm
I mean, it's,
Correct,
Yeah.
it is a new expense. It's more than above and beyond what we've had
So
before.
we're leaving it under discretionary, is that what you're saying? Okay, since it's a one-time thing.
But
And-
the new signs will last 12 years, correct?
Minimal, yes,
You won't see it again.
correct.
Michael, what were you
You'll
going
just
to
see
say?
maintenance.
Right.
I was moving on to the topsoils and sod. Up significantly, topsoils from 2,000 last year to 4,500, and the sod seed from 4,100 to 5,000.
And those are items for restoration. Some of our restoration, some of the costs have gone up. They really haven't been adjusted. This includes seed, what's referred to as Excelsior blankets.
I understand what it includes. I'm just wondering why the big increase this year.
Let me double check the increases again. That is line item
Under
On
4257.
The fourth or fifth item down?
It sounds like you found like $500 difference. Is that what you found?
No, the amounts increased quite a bit from last year was 2,000, this year 4,500.
Okay, so 2,000.
$2,500 increase and a
Wait, that was the
900
topsoil?
And on the topsoil, it's a $2,500 increase, and
That's
on the sod seed, it's a $900 increase.
We're back from, compared to last year.
Right.
Right, last year it's a $500. Part of that is just the expenses for better seed, some different material for blankets, such as blankets, or what's referred to as Excelsior blankets. As far as the topsoil goes, topsoil also has had an increase. We've been budgeting 1,800, 1,836, 2,000, and this year we are up, like you said, up to 4,500. And some of these are the restorations. Our goal is to come back and
so Dan, either there's more restorations or the seed went up,
well,
right?
there's more restoration. Some of this restoration includes areas, this year's a prime example, in the rural sections
I'm just
where
questioning
cars.
whether, assuming you looked at it, I mean, I don't have a problem, but the
Okay.
amount went up fairly dramatically.
Yes.
So as long as we're comfortable that we looked at the,
Especially with the topsoil. One of the goals is, I want to let the city council know, is some of the rural areas that we've gone through, for the ditches, for example, the rutting this year, the rutting that is caused by vehicular traffic gives us not gives us an opportunity, unfortunately gives us an opportunity that we need to restore and police the areas a little more. Again, is it ignorance or whatever you want to call it, but the weather this year was a lot milder, causing more softer ground, and especially when it snowed, cars, vehicles went off the roadway and basically, caused indentations into the grassy areas. So this was part of our, we want to go back in there and restore this so we can keep up maintenance.
Does that make you think that the areas that you grassed, you shouldn't have?
No,
You maybe should have used gravel instead? because this is happening so much?
Only places, it's not happening a lot. Where it happens is, our standard is to utilize approximately 2 foot of gravel along the edge of the road. Then we come back in with turf. Unfortunately, cars take the prerogative, or vehicles take the prerogative of, give somebody 2 feet, they want 4 feet. It's very limited, and the other thing I want to take a look at this year is some of the corners where high salt, corners tend to have high salt usage. With the high salt usage and the turf that we've been utilizing, whether it's, in this case, it's been sod, going back in there and restoring some of those with I'll call it more bulletproof, salt-proof sod and or seed. So that's why, we also want to look at that this year.
So Dan, this last item, refuse for restorations, you're saying part of that restoration is inside topsoils and sod seed, but then there's also a new line item for 5,500. Is that similar to the sod seed topsoil account?
Yes, and let me make sure, you're on 4257, topsoils is 4,500.
Very last line,
Sod-
Dan, the very last line in that.
Used for restorations, Dan.
Oh, but the refuse is basically dumpsters to get rid of grass, timbers, any type of landscaping material is very difficult. So we need to have funds set aside for the restoration debris. And in some cases, we even have residents that are dropping off, we have brush that residents could drop off at the Public Works. Unfortunately, we get grass clippings with that, and other miscellaneous debris, in which case we're stuck with getting rid of it. We can't just go and take that to the local dumps. The dumps will not accept sod, bushes. They have to be in a separate container.
And Dan, we get a certain amount of dumpsters still with our garbage contract.
Correct.
And if we exceed those free dumpsters, we have an additional expense.
Which we typically do.
Okay, so I didn't see this account last year.
Correct.
So that's how much over we went?
I wouldn't say over. We want to make sure that we're allocating. Oh, we did go over. The answer is yes, we did go over, but you're not seeing it in black and white. We want to make sure that we had the opportunity to see what the operations were doing and to call out for a certain dollar amount.
So Dan, that might have come out of supplies last year, even though we didn't.
Correct.
We didn't specifically identify it as a line item.
Okay.
It's like an example of that is in our street cleaning. When we get to street cleaning, you'll see the leaf, the expense for the dumpster on the leaves is about $6,500. When, it's the leaves, the debris that's generated from the street sweepers. So that's a prime example of that. And if you could, envision that portion of it.
I'm going to try one more, Dan. Just above that refuse, Pine Parkway mowing, $800. And if you look across to forestry, under account 4350, Pine Parkway island mowing, $825.
All right, what this is on Pine Park.
I know what it is. Does it belong in both places?
Oh, I'm sorry, 4350.
4350 and 4257. 4257 has the 800. 4350 has 825. Should only be in one place. I'll take the 800.
Why wasn't it in last year?
It was in last year.
It was not, because I'm looking at last year's budget now, and it doesn't show it's in there.
There was a dash in there last year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see if it was in last year's 42.
57.
Should it be only on one side?
Well, it's on both sides right
It
now.
should be in one. It should be in one line, and we should have had it in
Wait a
last
minute.
year's number, and because it was a small number, might have absorbed it in the rest of those maintenance expenses.
It was under forestry last year.
Is there a dollar amount though?
Yeah, yes, 800.
800 and
Oh.
4350.
Right, we've doubled the amount. Last year
So
we had
somebody
800.
just said it wasn't in last year.
It
somebody-
wasn't under the
wasn't.
In that
Oh, it
first
was in
account,
one.
it was on
I
the
got it.
second
Okay,
account.
got it.
It
Okay.
wasn't the year before as well for $800. Now the question.
So we'll take it out
becomes-
of the one, Dan.
Yeah, I want to just double check, and I'm sorry, Mike, what was that number?
4257 and 4350. Take out the 4350.
Quick,
50
quick
bucks
question,
more.
is that a separate company? Because we just recently purchased a brand new lawnmower, so is that,
That's done by outs. That's an outside service that does that, yes.
There
and
is
the
outside
homeowners
service,
association
does it?
pays half, we pay half.
That was by choice. I mean, that's,
Paul, we're
We ha-
talking $800 though, right?
$825.
we have a few of those islands in town that require additional maintenance, and a couple
This
years
one says
back, we
it's
just
half.
were not able to keep up with that. So we worked with the residents in that particular area on Pine Parkway who agreed to
The
pay half.
association, their
So we
association
were able to
pays half.
contract that out,
Let's keep,
make sure it was done timely.
I'd like to increase it to 825. The one from forestry should be removed.
Okay.
It was a duplicate. I could see where that happened. Last year it wasn't forestry. The year before, it was in this account.
So 825.
825 is being removed from 4350, but going back to 4257, we're raising 800 to
I
825.
think it's the opposite, isn't it? Isn't it
It's,
staying under forestry at 825?
no, it's moving to 4257, yes.
At 825, correct?
25.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Let's step up to barricade rental, July 4th Darien Fest for $2,000. I take it, as long as they're going to have it, we have to be obliged to do it.
Well, conversely, if, I mean, there's,
Which number are you on?
We're back at 4257.
there's a number of expenses throughout the budget that we always itemize for several years back, police department overtime, the camera, and this expense. So conversely, if the city council didn't want to incur any of the expenses, yeah, then the question would be to the chamber if they would have the event anymore.
Correct.
And Paul informed me just prior to this meeting, if you recall, last week I questioned whether we'd been reimbursed because we're supposed to receive a reimbursement from the chamber based on their profitability. I have not reviewed the numbers, but Paul indicated that the 2,000 that they reimbursed was our reimbursement for this year. I asked him to go back last year because last year I know the amount was higher than that. And the year before, we actually missed the first day. It got rained out that first day. So I was a little concerned that the amount dropped, but I have
Well,
not had a
they've
chance
been-
to review the detail.
Park district hit them big time with all sorts of
Well,
insurance
again, I'd
fees.
like to review and be comfortable with the number that,
Yeah, I think their profits went down.
so
utterly this year.
And the
basically
number,
it's-
Mike, just so we're clear, that's going to be the net profit. I think that's our, we have that,
we have that scale,
a
that
scale
agreement
with
that
that.
we had with them, so it's
Yeah.
based on their profit, and I
And-
guess I just
what
want to
do
go
we-
back
yeah,
and-
'cause
and,
I don't think it defines profit, but you obviously with your background would read
right,
that
I'll
very
go
well.
through
yes.
and review the
What are
calculation.
our
Actually, it
costs?
does.
$12,000 overtime for police.
I think it's
2,000
Approximately.
12.5.
12.5, then a 2,000 for barricades, what else?
We have the camera
1,800.
rental, the,
18.
No, if we
18,
said
18.
no, you threw those costs on their shoulders, then they have to make a decision what they're gonna do.
correct.
They're rethinking.
Well, I talked to
Yeah.
Corinne yesterday, and she said they're still thinking about a location.
They actually, they had a park district meeting, I want to say it was last night, actually, because I did talk to Claire today, because Claire was asking me if the city council has, agreed on their, on the expenses, so they can go ahead and start booking. I said, the council hadn't agreed on all of those expenses yet, so really you shouldn't book anything. But at this point, they are looking at, still having it at Community Park this year, and possibly then the following year, moving it to Sportsplex. That's the latest I heard from last night.
I mean, this is, I'm not a big Darien Fest proponent, to be quite honest with you. I didn't like it when it would cost us $18,000 in police overtime, and I know Ernie was able to get a cutback through using Andy Frayne and other things. I don't like it for 14.5, and it's costing us 14.5 with the
No,
2,000.
over 16.
Or 16, and to me, that should be their cost. I mean, if they want that service, that should be their cost. And I know that sounds terrible, and I'm not gonna make Claire and a lot of Park District people upset, but we have a tight budget this year, and we're looking at cutting other things out. And this is, again, $16,000 that we could use other places.
Downers Grove got rid of Heritage Fest, in, I think, 09, 2010, and Rotary, the Club of Downers Grove, picked up. Now, obviously, was on a smaller scale, but they were able to get it, and then eventually, Rotary kind of built it up to back to where it's, kind of where it's at. Is that something that we could do here in town?
Let maybe organizations band together to do it, but, I don't know how other people feel, and I hate to be the one who speaks this way, but there are costs in here that I really see as being extravagant. This is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I think we really, as a group, haven't done is really define what are the core services that we really, should be legally obligated to provide as a city. And then, what, say, on the capital projects that, it's important for long-term planning to make these investments in our streets and our, curbs and gutters and so forth. and then what's outside of that. And so when, you know, when I hear Mike talking about the fact that, you know, we're, you know, having to plan now for tax increases potentially, or fees, you know, in terms of utility fee increases, whether it's taxes for utilities or taxes for properties. I mean, the money's gonna have to come somewhere. And so, you know, it'd be nice to be able to say, okay, these are the core services, and we really, you know, and we might have to be tight on those too, and strategically pick and choose what we can and can't do. But this is certainly not a core service. I mean, the fact that, you know, we're talking about $16,000 that all taxpayers are paying for a festival that lasts, you know, 2-3 days.
Well, that's the use of the discretionary column though, too, also,
Right,
Sylvia.
right.
Just so I'm understanding you,
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
it is in there.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag, though. I mean, we have some things that, you know, end up in discretionary that, you know, might fall into the core service, you know, kind of, you know, that's, like I said, we haven't really drilled down and said, okay, these 10 items are absolutely core services, and we, you know, we have to do whatever we can to make sure that we, you know, do this every year and figure out how to do it. And then if we have some, you know, if we're doing well or bids come in and we have extra, then there's, you know, these other items. But certainly I think Darien Fest is outside of a core service.
Joe, did you have a question?
No, I agree with her to a point, but also the thing is, you also look, and to Joe's point too, talking about coming into Darien, one of the things that makes Darien a nice place to live is you have a kind of a fest there. So it's a double-edged sword, because you want people to, you know, embrace our town.
I agree with you.
But you know what, Joe? Darien Fest, 20-something years ago, started out as a way of enhancing the businesses that existed in the city of Darien. My wife and Joanne Coleman did the food booths for 5 years, and you only had Darien businesses doing those food booths.
Right.
That grew out of that. It was never supposed to be a fundraiser for the chamber, okay? It was supposed to be to celebrate businesses in the city of Darien. It is not that anymore.
Right, and I agree with you. I mean, the first year I was here, I asked how come we didn't have but one Darien restaurant out of the 10 restaurants that we had. So I know what you're saying.
This past year, we had pretty much all Darien restaurants except for one.
Right.
But it also brings elements into the city of Darien that I don't know if we want those elements in the city. I mean, you go to the fest. I'm sorry, I don't believe those are all Darien residents going to that fest anymore. And maybe you want to draw those crowds in. But look at what we have to do with we have to have the eye in the sky. We have to have police overtime to protect the park. I mean, it's become more of a problem. It damages the park.
Well, I was going to say, that's another component. So taxpayers are paying the city for the $16,000, but they're also paying the park district for whatever their costs are to restore everything. I mean, I know that's significant for them to
Right.
fix things, especially if the weather's bad. So, and vandalism, you know, that occurs during that time for their, you know, facilities and infrastructure that they have there. So,
I mean, right now,
what's
I
the
would-
real cost, I guess?
You know, right now I would say I don't want to pay for anything related to Darien Fest.
Oh,
anymore.
and as a city council member, I totally agree with you. I think there's other ways of doing it.
I do too.
And I think maybe, you know, I mean, we have time, we don't have to approve the whole budget today. So maybe this is the message we want to give back to the chamber, to say that, you know, we're thinking about pulling. And, you know, maybe instead of being status quo this year, they need to think about the alternative this year.
Yeah, I would just, I mean, yeah, all I would ask is, I mean, I've heard pretty passionately that, at least from Joe, that you don't want this event. So I don't know, you know.
From my standpoint, that
yeah.
I think it's a great marketing tool in the sense that people outside of the community are experiencing Darien. They might walk down the street, you know, to the fest and say, wow, this is a nice neighborhood. You know, those kind of things. So I think it has its advantages, but it doesn't necessarily need to be at the scheme level that it's on now. And maybe there's a way to get both sides, you know, both accomplishments on a smaller scale. That's my idea.
Well, and it doesn't mean it would go away either. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce may decide to continue on. They just have to decide financially how they're going to accommodate that.
So what are we going to do with the barricade for $2,000 then?
Well, I think the question should be broader at this point. Does the council want to support all the budgeted items for the fest this year or not? Because if you don't have the barricades, what we're really saying is I think we're taking out the rest. And I just want to be, again, you know, just so the chamber could plan appropriately, If the majority of the council does not want to have the expenses, I'd just like to tell her as soon as possible.
Thoughts,
Okay,
everybody?
Well, I guess as written, you know, we can vote as written, and then we can revisit or table it to see if there's another alternative.
I just
But-
know that the chamber is really giving a great deal of thought to this whole event to get all together. Or moving to they're talking about moving to different locations, they're moving to, talking about downsizing it, talking about getting rid of the carnival rides. They're doing all sorts of research and searching on how to do this. That would be a little bit more of a benefit and not be the Darien Fest that we have currently. So I would rather we just leave all of that in there and let them tell us where they're going. I have a meeting, Claire and I have been missing each other, but I have a meeting with them to see where they're at now on their new concepts.
Ted, I'd say take a vote. You know, we voted for Darien Point. I'd say vote for the fest.
Who would like the fest in? So we got one, and that's about it, correct? Okay. All right.
Joe, I hope your feelings aren't being affected by the fact that the Lions Club is no longer involved.
No, that
Okay.
has nothing to do with that.
I just want to be sure.
Oh,
that-
no.
Okay.
No, I've been kind of, this has been a concern of mine ever since I used to see that high overtime that we were paying the police and everything, which goes back years ago. I mean, it's probably been the last 5 or 6 years I've been
Well, that's
concerned.
the fault of our police department that allowed that to happen.
But even, $16,000 is still $16,000.
Well, I don't know if you recall, when I first got elected, we were spending $40,000 on it, and I questioned how much the chamber was making. They were making 20, and at the time I suggested we just take and give them 20, which would mean we'd save 20 and they'd still be making the same amount without having the fest. So it's, I think it's probably better that we give them the direction that you have given them at this point, because as long as they are rethinking things, they can rethink it on the basis of really starting from scratch instead of halfway there.
To answer Alderman, to expound a little bit on what Alderman Kenny said, maybe something even better will come of this. Maybe the chamber could work in concert with other organizations to put on a Darien Fest where they all absorb the
cost.
cost.
Agreed.
It might be better.
Anything else about this?
So just remind me which items are being taken out.
The 2,000.
2 in the police department, which are the,
Where is that?
a line item.
I don't
she's
know if you go
talking
back
about
right now,
tonight.
but that would be the
That's
barricade
fine.
rent.
Oh, just for tonight.
Right.
Well,
This budget.
4257, the 2,000 on discretionary.
Okay, that one, all right, that's out.
And then PD has Eye in the Sky, and PD has overtime. If you
Okay,
go
so
back at the,
Count
that-
4030,
What page was the PD?
page 30. Under 4030, 12,500.
Okay, got it.
All right, let's move down to 30-4263, training and education, 4,025. We have $1,000 for tuition reimbursement. Arborist training, 700. Management seminars, 375. APWA for 150. And machine operator training for 1,800.
Isn't our arborist contracted out?
No.
We have a city arbor, we have an arborist on staff.
Oh.
Basically, what we've done in this is we've reevaluated in comparison to last year.
Yeah.
We basically cut 50% of his budget from previous years.
Dan, I'm sorry, Joanne mentioned something here before we get too far ahead. Under that barricade rental, it was also for the 4th of July. There's an expense that we have under barricade rentals.
Oh, okay.
Which is, right, and it's,
So it's for 2,000. I don't know the breakout of the 4th of July parade, but I'm assuming that was, the council wants to keep something in for the 4th of July barricade rental.
I put a note there.
Well, that costs our police department money too, for the 4th of July. Why do we even do that parade anymore? If it's costing
I
the
think
city.
we did break that out
Yeah,
too.
If we're doing barricades and police, why bother, if we're giving a hit to another organization, the chamber, why don't we just get rid of all those events?
July
We have
4th,
about, we
5,000.
have about, yeah, we have 5,000 estimated for the Police Department, 4th of July parade.
Yeah, I mean, why are we spending that kind of money on an outside organization?
Yeah, we would require $1,000. Basically, it's $1,000 per event.
Oh, okay.
For the barricade?
Split that.
Yes.
Well, what's your guys' thoughts on the 4th of July parade?
Does that include the cleaning afterwards?
They do most of the cleaning, if I'm not mistaken,
Correct.
Yeah.
The Lions Club paid for that.
Anybody want to start off on that one?
Fireworks, no parade.
I mean, that's
I
what
know,
I'm hearing from everybody. We're being mean and lean here. Get rid of all
Well,
those
not trying to
things
be
we're-
mean, you know, Kathy.
No, I'm
yeah,
sorry,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We're trying to be lean.
Well, we're trying to plan for what's coming. You know, that's not something, I think that's what we're tasked to do. So, and so the Lions pick up the whole thing? Is that what that?
Well, I mean, fair is fair if you're gonna cut it out of the chamber.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's how that's run.
Yeah, they do the whole event. Our participation is the police monitoring, and we have used some, non-sworn outside agency to help at some of the intersections, but that's a number that
So
we
that's been
have.
100%. That's not a portion of the police costs. We donate the 100% of the.
That's what, yeah,
overtime
that's our estimated overtime expense,
Those
and we do not
several
get
hours.
reimbursed.
Right, okay, no reimbursement, okay.
I'm gonna go back and say this, and I'm the only alderman sitting here that wants to see Darien Fest as well as the 4th of July parade. I'm just gonna make this statement. One of the reasons why I'm such a big supporter of this is not because the kids get to have a fun time, not because everybody gets to party, not because we get to throw candy out. It's because we get to show what Darien is like and have people take a look at it. And it may be one day, it may be 3 days for Darien Fest, but it exposes what we are. And I'll tell you, if we get 10 families that live outside the city of Darien who decide that they want to move into it, it's worth every penny to me on that. That's the statement I'm going to make. I won't say another word on it.
Well, that's not to say that the parade's gonna go away.
Right,
It's just
that's
that
what
we'd
I'm
get,
thinking.
the police department would get reimbursed for the costs. Isn't that right? Or the.
Yeah, that
Right,
would be,
So it could
Basically,
still
that's it.
carry on, both of them,
Right.
all of them.
Right, it's not, we're not killing the parade and not killing the festival.
I
have to find
understand
out-
that, but be prepared. I'm telling you right now, if a lot of these organizations come back and say, we can't afford it, they're gonna throw it right on our shoulders, and we better have an answer for them.
Alderman,
We're already giving them the answer. We're not doing it.
So.
So it's now on their shoulders.
Alderman Shower, I agree with you, and it's what makes Darien a nice place to live. But I've also heard you talk about how important it is for our infrastructure. There was that sinkhole that happened over in Walnut when I first got elected. You showed me that, and if we don't have the capital funds for years 2018 and 19, and this is what we have to do it. Hey, that's what we have to do.
One of the things that I proposed when we were in a meeting, and we can talk about it now, we can talk about it later. One of the things that I would like to see happen eventually is that we start having an actual gas tax on
Gasoline.
gasoline. 3 cents per gallon, okay? If an average car fills up that's got 15 gallons, that's 45 cents. On 3 cents per gallon, that's gonna give us $327,000 per year. Couple things that are happening. We're not turning around and sending it over to the homeowners. It's kind of the same tax as having municipality taxes, NICOR taxes, whatever you may want to look at it. One of the biggest places that you're going to get revenue from is the speedway that's off of Lamont Road that's right across from 102nd Street, which is it's actually the city of Darien. But that's all around there. That's Lamont, Woodridge, people that are basically who do not live in Darien. I think it's a huge revenue boost for us. We have never looked at it, but I keep saying this is what we should start looking at, little stuff like this. At $327,000 per year, that's going to give us our capital projects, maintain our infrastructure. Anyway,
Well,
just make
that
that
said, again, backtracking to what I was saying before, as I indicated, Brian, and you saw the 327,000, you're right, those are the projected numbers based on a 3-cent gas tax. But if you take that, if you take the sales tax on the food and beverages, and you take the increase in the real estate taxes that he's projecting, that comes to $2.2 million. If your capital projects alone are 3.5, and currently we're only, in year 3, we're only projecting being able to transfer 1.3 million, that just gets you to the 3.5 of what I think, at least on the average, we've been saying are our core capital projects.
And if we get to fiscal year ending 19 and we turn around and if we're at 18 miles worth of ditch projects, by that time we're gonna be at how many miles of ditch projects? 22, would you say? And then we have another 6 miles to go?
By 19, 20,
Yeah.
by 20, we'll have probably 3-4 miles left at best.
So eventually, we're gonna have that line item's gonna eventually drop on off.
But it's not dropping off till that time unless we purposely start looking at it and saying, okay, maybe we need to push it out a couple more years and drag it out a few more years so that the revenue is matching the expenses.
I think the intent was to go through these expenses and, as an example, if the council, if a majority of the council had 10 things in there they really wanted to keep in that they've already taken out, then they'll have a chance to look at the revenue. So I think we should probably just to finish through the expenses and then because, the revenues, we ended up actually getting information today because I thought we might get into some of the revenues later, so everybody doesn't have all that information. So I'd rather
You're
go through the
exactly right, yeah.
expenses, and then we can update the council on, so everybody has the same information, that's all.
And that's why it's important to go through, even though there's small expenses, to go through those, and whatever you're cutting there obviously leaves more dollars for being transferred to whatever you guys consider to be the core things that we need to provide the taxpayers. So you're
Right,
absolutely
and
Frank.
you know what, I'm not trying to, make Darien not a nice place to live, but I think it's fair to, for the residents that are, watching or hear these, tune into these meetings, that they understand what's going on. And, are they willing, are they okay with their water rates going up? Are they okay with their property taxes going up? Are they okay with, paying more at the pump, 3 cents more per gallon at the pump? Because that's basically what we're asking them to do in order to keep going down this path. And then every little thing that you add in here, that is, like I said, outside of the core, our core services, it just takes away from those things.
And Sylvia, I agree with you, but let's go back, okay? First of all, our property taxes are going up. However, we're getting a wash on it, correct? Just to address that?
That's only
Well-
for the current year, that's projected in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah,
The water rates, that is one of the things that I think it's the most important thing that we're probably dealing with in the city of Darien, and we have pretty much no control over it. We have the 800-pound gorilla called Chicago that's
Well,
basically,
I
you know what I
know.
mean?
Well,
I know.
I
They
think
gotta
though in
understand that.
part, Ted, with the, and again, the water is another discussion, but, we've done this on a number of occasions where we really have, and we haven't raised the property tax in years. The water rates, we have raised, but last year we held off. And that, that's just a philosophy. Some towns will increase their water rate every year and they build a bigger cushion so they don't fluctuate. The budgets I proposed really look on the water a little more annually. We look at different things. And this past year, one of the things we noticed is a lot of people are using less water and therefore,
Expensive.
right, which is a good thing. And that's typical of when you have a water rate increase. But we didn't have one last year, and we're still seeing the water decrease. People are just conserving more.
Right.
And while that's a great thing, it does eat into our revenue. And in the water fund, we've always been lean, and we have not set aside money, again, for some of the larger capital projects or the important maintenance items. But that's all I have on the water, because we'll get to that later.
And the other thing, again, I didn't discuss it last week because we didn't have the information, but on the MFT currently we're projecting about a $300,000 ending fund balance. You look at the end of year 3, it's $19,000. So that's being dissipated by $100,000 a year, which means in year 4, something has to be done to make up for that shortfall also, that funds may need to be put into there. So again, it's hard to explain. Government accounting just drives me nuts, to be honest with you. There's so many little buckets where you're hiding 500 here and 1,000 there, and I don't mean to be mean-spirited about any of this, but all those little things add up when you're taking that same $1,000 and spreading it in 5 different spots. To me, I hate government accounting. I mean, I think
Well,
it
I
should be
mean,
done more like a general business where you can see everything more in one place instead of
I mean, not to cut you off, but a perfect example is the pension obligations for the police. We're going from 1.2 million to FYE 19 to 1.7 million. That's a $500,000 increase at 43%. That's nothing that that's just our obligations.
right.
That's set by the state, and we have to adhere to it.
But as Alderman McIver indicated, I mean, I think everybody here would agree that safety is very important. I think we've gone a long way toward improving the operations of our police department,
Right.
trimming that down where you can, and that is one thing we don't have control over.
Safety is
and we haven't
what
raised
makes
the
a place a
taxes
nice
for it.
place to live.
But-
Well, that's,
but
and
that
I
is-
mean,
that is the
and
place
Well,
to
also,
spend it.
And that's, hold on, Joe, I'm sorry.
When you're, you know, there are some days you look out in front of your house and you want to see a snowplow plowing your streets, and there's other days you look out and you want to see a police officer
yeah.
driving through your neighborhood. So it's just not public safety that makes Darien
Well,
a
no,
nice
that's,
place.
those are core services. Those
Right.
are,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
would agree with you there.
There's physical safety, which is the police, which we will always turn around and fund no matter what. But there's also financial security. And I made this argument, I showed Joe this up in Evanston one time. If we turn around and maintain our infrastructure at the level where it needs to be, it will continue. Once we get it up to that level, it'll be very little money to maintain it at a top rating, basically. Best example is that we were up in Evanston and we drove down a street that hadn't been worked on literally in 35 years and had a tree growing out in the middle of the street. I mean, we don't want to ever get to that situation. We don't want to ever have to get to Hinsdale, and I'm not throwing them under the bus, but from what I understand, didn't they have a $50 million bond in order to turn around and do their infrastructure?
They had to put in new water lines and do all their streets because they failed to do them for years.
Downers Grove had,
Financial security,
Downers Grove had to take a
physical
$5 million
security.
bond out to do the Queens
I
Corridor.
don't think
I don't think anyone's arguing
nobody's
that.
arguing
Yeah,
that.
nobody's
Nobody's-
arguing
yeah.
about the core stuff.
Right.
You know, I think that we're talking about these other things.
The little
And,
things.
and it doesn't factor in, who knows what the state's gonna do. I mean, so I think what the numbers you're talking about, Mike, don't even include, you know, if the state comes back and
Right,
says,
right, they
you know,
don't.
you only get half.
Yeah, I believe it is the most optimistic we can be. I mean, aside from hopefully
Right.
getting a little more from here and there.
But to circle back from the question on whether or not we should pull, if we're pulling the Darien Fest and, you know, should the parade go with it, I think that makes a lot of sense. So you're just doing it across the board. Now, again, it's not to mean that it won't take place, it's just to mean that we're not gonna be helping pay for that. And also, the other thing is, I can't you know, with a good conscience, do those kind of things. I have to do those things first before I would ever go to the residents and increase their tax or something like that, because, you know, and it's not something that would be permanent either. If things turn around and things get better, absolutely bring it back, because it is a lot of fun and everybody enjoys it for the most part.
But just to be clear, and Mike can, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, things get better. This is, again, the philosophy of the council has, since we have not raised, the council's not raised taxes in many years. I think '08, we had a few taxes that were raised. So, you know, we're hitting a point where this is not a surprise. It's not like 2008 when the economy tanked.
Right.
We're hitting a crossroads that we saw coming, and now it's here. And again, that is primarily because, you know, I don't know that there's another town with a lower tax rate and some of the lower rates. So again, for anybody watching, I don't want them to say like, well, what the heck is the city doing? How come you didn't know it? We knew this. It's
No, we
just
know it, and
here
we're
now,
planning.
and we're trying to look at it out in year 3
Correct.
because
Year
we're
3.
starting to see that real crunch where we're actually don't have money for what I'll call our core capital works projects in year 3.
And I think we deserve a pat on the back for that, to be honest with you, because we are looking out to year 3. We could blindly go along in this meeting tonight and last week and next week or however long it takes, leave all these things in there, because there is enough money to do all of this for this year, there's no question, and even probably into next year, depending what the state of Illinois does. But rather than do that, I think we're doing the responsible thing to looking at year 3 and where can we make some cuts today to make year 3 not really be a problem, or year 4 as we go down. So
And
again,
just
I
put
think we're doing
put it in a little perspective as we get into the revenues, which was the plan after all the general fund expenses. And this is one example. If you take a house similar to Treasurer Corrin's, or exactly like Treasurer Corrin's, and the city council increased the tax levy by $1 million, somebody who lived in a house like Mike Corrin would spend $130 more for that year. And I have a handout here, but again, just to put it into perspective, because if we're not talking real numbers, it's hard to visualize this, because if we're just using increase and we don't know the amount, that's an impact. So again, those numbers we'll get to. It's just, the plan was to hit the expenses first.
And the thing that I always bring up is that's just one component of their bill. So meanwhile, the other entities would be going, well, it's only 100 here, it's only 100 there. And that's what's killing the system, is the taxes. So we're a component of it, and I just want to be as responsible as possible, you know, to try not to go there.
But I think intelligent people, and I know a lot of them, that will sit back and say, you guys do a great job. Because for what I pay in taxes, the services I get from the city of Darien are pretty great. Just the other night, I had a group of guys that were sitting there telling me that, because as we're going through the budget process, and they said, I look at my tax bill and I look at what I pay on taxes to the city of Darien, when I consider the police service and the
municipal services that I get from the city, it really is a deal. And it is. And today I had guys telling me at lunch, you guys spend a lot of time doing this. Every governmental entity should work as well as you guys work. And I really believe, and they mean this sincerely.
Yeah.
These are people who sit down and actually look at it, and say, for what I get, it's a good deal.
And a resident can go to Public Works and get $400 worth of wood chips for free.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal.
But see,
So there's a lot of these
but you know what,
ancillary
Brian?
things.
We're also the victims of the high standards that we've set. Dan and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. We have done we do a lot for the people within this community. We got great snow plowing services. We have all, freebie this and, we do all these things. So people's expectations is up here. And when money becomes tighter, how do you keep the services up here? It's going to be hard. Anything lower than that. It reminds me a few years ago when I wanted to cut out the money for the, quote, free leaf pickup. And I got emails from people who said, how dare you take my free leaf pickup from me? When it wasn't free, really. They were paying for it anyway. But people got upset with that because they thought they were losing something.
Amnesty Day.
Amnesty Day. Same. I still hear about
we
Amnesty
still
Day.
hear about
Yeah,
that
we
one.
do.
Yeah.
If we start cutting things, we're going to hear about it.
So Ted, you want to vote on the Lions Club?
Yeah, I was
Parade
going to say, let's
services.
vote on that. Obviously, the 4th of July, we already talked about.
Oh, that's what I meant. I'm sorry, the
Darien
parade, yeah.
Fest. And let's also throw the 4th of July fireworks in there as well. I'm assuming that none of these want to be.
Well, the fireworks, Ted, I'm sorry, you were going to go back to that. That's in the category with
Correct,
the
that's
neighbors.
in the previous one.
So
which I'll go
maybe
back
after this, if you want to go revisit that page.
It's up to you. So,
Yeah.
So the parade, who wants to not provide free service for the 4th of July parade? Is that the question then?
Not,
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 Not-
if you took it away from the chamber, you
mean,
gotta take away, you got.
I'm gonna have to vote for that because I voted against the other one too.
Yeah.
I'll probably get.
We're not.
Sylvia, you're voting, I think
Wait.
you didn't put your hand up, so.
Wait,
if-
so are we, how about, why don't we say
You-
we're voting for
Yeah, do it how you want, I just was
Yeah.
trying to get it going.
who wants to support, continue to support
I'm the
the,
only one who put it down, so just take it
Got
out.
it now,
So,
okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Same
we're
result.
taking out any funds for the two other organizations.
Correct.
For the, yeah, for the
Correct.
parade
Parade
and,
police and, okay.
And before we go back to 30-4263, trade and get education, let's go back to 10-4239 on 22, page 22. This is a good segue into this area. Just a refresher, everybody, last week we turned around and there was a pretty big discussion. It was going back and forth, and we figured it'd be the best thing to do is make sure we have everybody's input on this. So before we start talking about Neighbors Magazine, let's start with the bottom one on 10-4239, July 4th fireworks contribution for $8,000. I'll tell you right now, if it's a situation where we've cut the other sections, we might as well, I'll be the first one to tell you to cut this one.
take a vote, or
agree.
I would agree.
Yeah, I agree.
raise hands to take it out?
take it out.
To take it out.
So 4 to 2, okay. We'll take that out. All right, let's go up to Neighbors Magazines and Neighbors Postage, 13,000 and 12,000.
Are you going out of order, Ted? You want to?
Yeah, I wanna- yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to, I figured with the 4th of July, like I said, it's a good segue. So, the discussion over at goal setting was we had some issues with Neighbors Magazine, and they were late a couple times. They've fixed those items and so forth, and then Joe had brought up the fact that, nothing against you, just saying we had a big discussion. Where does everybody stand on the Neighbors Magazine?
Let me add, Paul, we did end up, because this was higher, this Neighbors Magazine line, because during goal setting, we talked about the possibility if the magazine was not financially secure, that we might have to buy a couple other extra pages.
Yeah,
So
it's
Paul,
two
if
more.
everything stays consistent, that 13,000 should be what number? It should be down by how much?
1,200 approximately.
So
I think you have it in the spreadsheet, remember you added that, if you could check it. it would really be the difference between the last year number, I think, and this year number, but
Well, it was up by 3,000 from last year. I brought up that issue, and then the last bill we paid on the last warrant was 3,100, which would equate to a little over $19,000 for the year. So 20,000
Excluding
sounds-
postage?
I'm sorry?
Excluding postage?
No, including,
Oh,
both the two of them together.
Now
Yeah.
we're 25.
because two additional page, well, Paul's gonna look for that if you wanna talk about it a little more, and then we'll find that number.
Brian, keep in mind that we got the consumer confidence report that's also included within Neighbors,
Yeah.
so, it's about a $3,500 expense.
Yeah, once a
or
year,
whatever
we're
it's called.
required to send out the consumer confidence report, and that's one of
For the
our,
for the water?
so that's out of the water fund, it would be if it wasn't in here.
Prior to the Neighbors magazine, we mailed all that out.
Yeah, we had a, quarterly,
Yeah.
and we just did in-house, it was just kind of a
We
Word
spent about-
Perfect
we spent about
magazine.
6,000, didn't we?
Well, we had an outside printer, I
Yeah.
forget what their name is, they live over on Darien Lane.
But, in quality, you can't compare, but,
There was no comparison.
but again, we didn't have other things at that point, like Direct Connect and those things.
So, is there a legal obligation to mail it, or do we have to just provide?
No,
the
that,
information?
the consumer
Yeah.
confidence report, we have to mail.
Okay, that has to be mailed.
Yes.
Okay. And that, you said, what's the cost to mail it?
I believe from several years ago, it was close to 3,000, 3,500. I'd have to double check. I'm seeing if we had a line item from 3 years ago. I don't have that information in front of me. I'd have to double check.
Well, you were sending it out to what, 9,000 households?
Probably more
Yeah,
than
so, and the Neighbors goes to every single household?
Yeah, that's a
well,
bulk
more-
mailing.
More than just Darien residents, because they can't take out certain areas, like these portions of Brookridge get it, yeah.
But the
Okay.
credit is back to that
Kidswood gets
portion.
it.
So the difference is actually $4,600, from
Okay.
13,000 down to 8,400 for the magazine, and the postage is on.
Okay, so what's the
The
total?
postage is what?
It's on at the 12,000.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah,
8,400 for the magazine.
as it is now, yes. If we don't have
Correct.
to
We
buy any more
anticipated
pages.
2 extra pages per issue if they needed.
So 20,400 is the total to send that out,
Right.
minus the probably 3,000 for the consumer confidence information that we would have to send out, but again, that's the water fund.
What's everybody's thoughts on it?
We had more phone calls when they were late, so we obviously, this magazine means something to our residents. We also have residents that do not have other forms of communication
Yeah.
like the internet, and this is an essential tool for them.
I mean, I agree that it's an essential thing that so many people rely on because they aren't electronically connected. But, maybe, if anything, I could see with this is, if you want to do it twice a year as opposed to 4 times,
6 times we do it now.
6 times.
I don't know if you'd get them, the other aspect of the magazine is the advertisers, the businesses, the Darien businesses that advertise in that. I don't know if you'd lose them.
Do we know, because I know the Park District was gonna have a discussion on this with regard to pages, the school districts. Do we know if the other ones are gonna be part of this still, or, because they were all
I
discussing.
thought the park was in there.
The park's in there, the 61's in there, but 63 and 66 are real stinkers. They don't wanna, contribute.
So do they pay, do these other entities, okay, so, like, what does it cost to put out this thing,
They pay for their own pages.
Right, so is it like on a per-page basis we pay?
Yes,
Yes.
And
$400 a page, and
Okay.
it's all, plus, the intent is to make up, from the public bodies to pay for, some of the printing, those types of costs. And obviously, the person who's the publisher, this is a business, so
Right.
he sells advertising so he can make a profit.
And the last memo to us, Brian, was that business, the advertising is picked up for him in Darien.
Yeah,
So that's a
since,
plus.
since he was at the goal setting, when he was having problems with the advertising, he said now, at least in current information, the advertising has picked up.
And, correct me if I'm wrong, so you're saying that we can get it for 8,400, or we're anticipating it's 13,000 because they need us to buy 2 more pages to make it viable?
It's gonna be 84.
It's 84,
We
okay.
budgeted the extra in case he needed 2 more pages.
Okay,
But we're seeing now that, at least the latest information is we don't need to end up buying a couple more pages every edition.
You're saying 20,400 instead of 25,000.
Correct.
Minus,
The 3,500. Yeah.
I've always been a big supporter of the Neighbors magazine. I just think it's.
Well, that's because you were on the cover.
Yeah, there you go. I knew this was gonna start. All right, let's leave it at that. Thanks, Mac. Anybody else's thoughts, Sylvia?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a pretty high, I think, senior population in Darien. You know, do I find it, valuable? I'd say that the information's kind of dated by the time it comes around. I mean, it's good for your kind of some, basic information and, contact numbers and some advertising. So because of that, I think that, I would probably support keeping it because we really don't have anything else like that. That's an alternative. I mean, we have the electronic, obviously, and we have the Channel 6.
And a great website.
And a
if
great
people-
website.
yeah,
But again, the electronic and the website, you have to
Exactly.
get on with a
Everybody has
computer.
the app. Well, unlike the parade and unlike Darien Fest, this is more of a service.
And it covers
our
everybody.
citizens,
You know,
yeah.
it's something that everyone receives. So that I do see it differently than.
Well, if you guys could work on the other school districts to get into the magazine, that would definitely be a plus. Because your resident, Dan Detweiler, he wrote me an email a while ago about, you know what, he feels terrible. You do all this advertising for 61, but you do nothing for our school district. And I wrote back, I said, hate to break it to you,
Yeah.
but they pay for those pages.
I guess
He didn't even know that.
Would our price decrease if they were to participate?
Well, that's what I'm kind of curious. What does it really cost?
It's
Because
not-
61 was never
Either
originally
his
in there.
profit would increase,
His profit
or
would,
our,
obviously.
or our price should decrease.
Well, the number of
Yeah.
pages in
So-
the booklet
61
would
wasn't
go up.
always in there.
No,
61
they
is
pay
really,
for their pages now.
right, but it's only the last couple of years, I think, that they.
And our price hasn't changed, is what you're
Exactly,
saying.
that's what I'm saying.
Right.
We encourage them, and it
So,
turned out to be a
so if everybody's
cost
in there and our
benefit for
price
them.
doesn't go down,
Well, that's the thing. District 61 got in because they found it was a cost benefit for them. They didn't have to send out all those other mailings that they were doing.
Right.
So why can't we get the 63 and 66 to realize that too? That it would save them money, and we have one document that has all of the school districts, everything in it. So if you guys have connections to your school district.
Yeah, I
It's a
mean,
fair question. We should ask
Yeah.
Tim, if we're going out and advocating, for the other entities to get in, it's a fair question of what benefit it would get for the people already in the magazine. I
Right.
don't know that there would be any.
it sounds like our costs haven't gone down with new people buying pages. That's my
Right.
point.
And
So,
I think it's a standard price for pages, yes.
And if you can get one of the other two, then the third one might jump in, so they're not, so they're not totally left out.
well, then you talk about a high school district too, then. No, that's another school district.
Joe, what do you think?
You gotta keep the magazine in.
Tom?
People use it, keep it in.
Yeah, I agree. It's a service to our citizens.
All right, so we're going to keep Neighbors magazine and the postage in, okay?
At the reduced amount though, correct? 8,400.
From 13 to 84?
Yes.
Okay.
Keep those dimes and nickels coming.
All right, let's go down to informational flyers for 1,000. That includes flyers that we put on the cars from the police, correct?
Yeah, we have to.
Well, we have that, there's, police have a line. We have put 1,000 in here, a couple years back. We did put, we basically bought additional page or two. And that's really, we're called informational flyers. If we had something we wanted to get out, like when we were doing the traffic survey or something citywide, we had purchased a couple additional pages, and we call them informational flyers because they were put in the magazine.
Anybody got
I
any
can't
issue
tell
with
you
that?
we're gonna use it for sure, but, it's up to the council.
Any issues with it, anybody? No? Okay, let's leave it in.
How many
Sit-
pages do we buy? I'm sorry,
4,
4?
Kathy, do we pay for the page where you have your message?
no.
I
No.
don't think so, no.
Okay.
City surveys for $500?
This sounds like a Jeopardy question.
Survey says?
Going off the board for 500?
Well, there's,
Remember
we
Joker's Wild?
we did a survey, we did
10
a survey a couple of years
4239,
ago.
page 22.
Yeah, we did a survey a couple of years ago that I think actually was very successful. There was minimal cost. We did a monkey survey, and I would like to do something like that again. We got, a pretty good response. And
Oh, this is when we asked about.
a
certain-
number of
yeah.
services and things, and again, we did not do it this year, and probably to do it every few years is really a good
They could
idea,
tell
so
us
I'd
how
like to.
much they missed the parade. would
You
be a
know,
good-
this would be a good year to do it,
opportunity.
especially if things, you know, change a little bit.
Okay, we'll keep that in. And then Citizen of the Year for 6,000.
A lot of Citizen of the Year, just so everybody recalls, you know, people are buying tickets and things, but we do have, again, I'll say minimal expenses for, you know, the band, and we pay for the volunteers' tickets, you know, the volunteers for the city, the plan commission, the volunteers for the, that tape the meetings now. So we have, again, the 6,000 we spent, which is about the net expense for us.
If you recall, we used to have a separate party for our police and volunteers.
Right.
And that kept going down in numbers, so we decided to incorporate it into Citizen of the Year dinner
Okay.
dance, and that's why we pay for the volunteers' tickets.
Gotcha.
And also, Mayor, I know that you were gonna be putting together a committee for the Citizen of the Year,
That's
so.
why we were supposed to do that.
At a committee, yeah. We can do it this week or next
So
week. but we're
that may
pretty tied
turn up
but
other
we can set up a
ideas.
committee fairly quickly.
We need to just, yeah, because they,
You were gonna have us talk about it.
At a,
we were gonna talk
yeah.
about it, they feel, the committee that is in charge now, felt that they didn't have enough direction to go off script and go to other organizations to solicit nominations and, you know, do other things.
Kath, can you put your mic down? I'm sorry. A little bit closer.
I'm sorry.
That's-
Okay, so they're looking for more direction from us, either to, you know, put a little bit more into the ordinance, but just to give them more ideas of how, like Marion Kropika said the other night, there are so many people in this town that could be Citizens of the Year, and we just need people to step up to volunteer them, and that's what the Citizen of the Year Committee is looking for, is more opportunities for them to go out and do some of that themselves.
Okay, so we're going to leave it in? Okay. All right, that's...
I'm torn, I have to say.
About the Citizen of the Year, the
Yeah.
whole event?
Well, yeah, you know, I think it's nice to recognize a Citizen of the Year, you know, but I'm not sure that you know, how many people attend in terms of, like, how many residents would actually attend it, the dinner dance?
They do,
Depends
a
who
lot.
wins.
I
I
mean,
think it's
it's like a couple hundred, or?
Well, it depends upon the candidate, but, I
Yeah.
mean, when we had
Probably-
Father
We've
Gavin, it
had
was
over
800
200,
people.
And then we've had 100.
Couple hundred's probably the
Yeah.
more of the norm.
Yeah,
I
I mean-
understand there's 155 so far.
I mean, can the ticket prices be a little higher and decrease the city's participation in it? I mean, I think it's nice to recognize someone, but, you know, it seems like a very finite group of people, you know, citywide are actually, you know, benefiting from this.
Well, the markup on the food and drink is, I don't think anything. I don't
Plus the
think it's a pretty straight pass-through cost, if I'm not mistaken, Tina.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
it's gotta be
thinking it
close.
is.
I don't have the exact figures.
Yeah,
Right.
Helen is
So,
over.
again, you get, in terms of residents, you certainly get the volunteers, the city volunteers, but whether or not, you know, random residents just come every year and buy tickets, that I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else knows.
But I know that I've gotten several suggestions, a little bit over the years, but for some reason a lot this year. So even at the cake and coffee, there was a lot of residents giving me their opinions, and do we need it every year? And you know, there's just been a lot of discussion about it. So I thought, well, maybe with the committee, you know, they can incorporate any feedback we've been getting as well, and you know, just kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, how many volunteers do we have?
On all the,
Probably 20 and their spouses.
yeah, we're down. We've got the Plan Commission now and the
So it's those folks.
the television guys.
And all your past Citizens of the Year get there too.
Yeah, the past citizens, yeah.
That's a cost.
Yeah.
All right, let's just take a quick vote, make sure. Everybody in?
I think for now.
Yeah.
So 5, okay, 6.
Well, we're
Yeah.
kind of
We're not-
committed to, yeah.
We're not taking eye rolls in the minutes, but that was a yes, Sylvia.
I don't think you want to tell Bonnie Kucera the money's not there.
All right, guys, before we go to 30-4263, let's take a 10-minute break. We've been sitting here for a couple hours, so we'll come back. So,
I'm gonna turn the microphones off.
thank you.
Ted, what number were we getting back to? I'm sorry. What-
30-40. Okay, everybody, we're back.
Back?
Well, when she gets to it then.
Okay, what page are we on?
We're on page 45, 30-4263, training and education.
There's a couple of those lines that have no money in it. I'll take those out, like computer training. We have other training amounts, but there's no dollar amounts. Just to clean it up, I'll take that out.
I guess the question just on this section, is this same as last year, from what I remember?
It's less by half,
Less by half?
yes,
Because we're using less training.
yes.
Hey, Ted, were the fireworks discussed?
We took it out.
Oh, okay, I missed that. Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have any issues with this, since we are cutting this in half in this section? I can go line by line, but,
No.
No.
okay. Everybody good? Okay. All right, let's move over to 30-4350. We're going to start with fertilization of 75th Street for $12,100. The first question is always going to be asked, is this, obviously it's for 75th Street, but this has nothing, it's all for the improved areas already, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
So is this gonna be an ongoing maintenance expense every year?
as it has been, yes.
And we cut 75th ourselves, or does county cut it?
I'm sorry?
Do we cut 75th Street grass, or does county cut it?
We cut it, we get reimbursed from the county.
So,
What's our reimbursement? I forgot. It's minimal compared to how many times we
No,
cut.
I know it's, from last year, I wanna say it's 45,000, I'll have to double check that, because I know we got reduced, due to Willowbrook taking over.
Dan, it was covering our costs, right? And at some
I think
point.
it was.
It was close. It's not like
Yeah.
it's like 10% of our costs. It was at some point.
Well, do they reimburse us for the
We were
fertilizer?
cutting it more than,
Oh, the reason we did it is because the county wouldn't cut it, I'm sorry, wouldn't cut it as much as
To
we
our
wanted. and it got
our
correct. So
specifications.
but our expenses to cut as much as we do for the reimbursement is not bad.
okay, the difference between them
Correct.
is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
And Joe, your question. I
So
think
my
we
question-
did ask them for a raise a couple of years ago, I think, Dan, and
They
they
said
said
no.
go
Correct,
away.
that was, yeah. The raise was number one, was no. I believe you're gonna ask about them reimbursing us on fertilization, the answer is no.
Yeah. And this account is up about $1,200. I guess in my own mind, I know I use like a fertilizer service and everything, and every year they have like 6 or 7 applications, and I've cut it down to about 4. How many applications does this include, and would it make sense to cut it down by 1 or something? Any
I
savings
believe
there?
it's 5 applications that we had proposed, versus the 6.
I don't know how anybody feels about that.
Well, okay, so it's this is for the, along the sides of the road?
This is for 75th Street from Lamar Road
Okay.
up to Lord of Life Church there on 75th Street. It includes the medians, medians meaning in the middle, as well as the southern and northern right-of-ways, along with portions of Plainfield, very limited portions of Plainfield, and parts of Cass Avenue.
And is this you said this is an annual fee, or a number we do?
Expense, yes.
And it's always been this much?
Well, last year was 10 something, 10.8 or something, so it's up about 1,300, but that's for 5 applications. That's why I was wondering if we need 5.
Yeah, do we
or
need 5 for these kinds of areas?
Again, if you recall, I know the city council had discussion on the detention facilities, and I have to double check, but I believe the detention facilities.
Those are broken out, those
Yeah, those are
separate, Dan.
extra.
Okay, it is, that's
Yeah.
fine, thank you. But do we want to see green turf, established turf, or do we want to see pretty flowers called dandelions? So I guess I kind of throw it back at the,
Do
Yeah,
you
this
think
is
it's necessary to-
purely aesthetics, Dan, right?
Yes.
Because obviously not everybody fertilizes the grass. It would just look weeded and it wouldn't look as nice.
Those are main thoroughfares, and if you're talking about attracting people to the city, I'm not, I'm not sure if there's really, would a difference of one application, I don't know what the cost would be, but
if there was only one app,
one less.
One less.
one less, I'm not sure if it's really worth it.
Well, do we have how many last year for the 10,000?
Same.
5.
I believe it's 5. I want to say it's 5. I need to double check if we had proposed 5 or 6.
And because it's over 5,000, it would come back to the council with the details.
Oh, you'd
Correct,
have-
the
you-
committee
this would
already
be
talked
bid-
about
bid
this
out, okay.
issue. And while we're going through stuff, I'm gonna go through my notes here and just double check to see if we have 5 or 6 applications that I called out for.
Yeah, we discussed this in municipal services already.
So I'll vote to keep it in? Okay.
And while he's doing
It's
that.
in, Dan.
Okay, I'll double check it
And the
regardless.
City Hall and Public Works is 1250, last year was 360. Not a lot of dollars, but a big jump.
And I'd have to take a look at the breakdown on that. Let me see if I can locate the breakdown.
Are we fertilizing, you know, the green area between the shed, the garage shed, and our building?
Here at the City
Yeah.
Hall?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was thinking that, well, I would propose to, I guess, the council, that we allow that area to be used by our citizens to do gardens, and then we wouldn't have to fertilize it.
It's a very de minimis amount, but nonetheless, maybe $50.
Yeah, Sunny Patch is looking to, the Good Works Inc. is looking to expand their program, and I'm trying to help them, and I thought of that spot right away. I thought it would be fun to have, residents pick out little lots to make their gardens, come over there and make their gardens. I want to talk to the Park District too. They've got areas that they haven't developed yet, to let residents, what do you think?
Would there be an additional cost, though, for us? Would we have to tear up the grass and plow it under and everything? I mean, is that-
I don't know, I don't think
I think
that
they
would be the
use,
They use
duty.
those
they use
containers.
the tubs or
That tub that's
containers,
out
I don't know.
Well, no, these wouldn't be the container, this
This
would
would be
be actually residents planting the vegetables and stuff.
It'd be very similar to what you see off
Naperville.
of Lamont Road over there
Yeah.
by
By the
Main
church.
Street,
Main
down the
Street,
street, down
yeah.
the Grove, where they have
Yeah.
Well, if there's no cost in the budget, we wouldn't absorb that then. It would be something that the organization or people involved would have to do.
So maybe we could,
about liability, though. It's our property.
We get a waiver. I mean, I don't know the extent, Mayor, that you're talking, but if it's another group or if it's local residents there, we would,
we
we
would
would-
want it to be local residents, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it would be residents that would then donate it to the,
Sunny Patch, well, they
yes.
would use it for their own families, but also, I mean, the Sunny Patch, my God, what did they say? They gathered 400,000 pounds of vegetables that they gave to families in need.
Yeah, we would
this
just
last
have
year.
liability waivers. It's not,
So,
it's not,
Yeah, but the only thing with that is, then you have to put some type of fencing up to protect against animals getting in there and eating the vegetables. I mean, that's gonna happen.
But would that be our responsibility? This is something I will talk about with Cynthia and Mary Beth. But I would think that might be cost that would be incurred by the
I mean,
gardeners
If you have a
themselves.
garden in your own backyard, you usually put some type of fencing around that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got rabbits in my area that wanna come in there and eat that stuff, so I fence it off. These people would have to
Make
do
sure
the
it's
same.
cleaned up every fall, and
Yeah. Then there's cleanup and there's, yeah.
own little garden is a lot of work.
well, we can keep this in until we hear more
Okay,
information if the
all right.
council wants it. And again, it's a matter of the municipal complex. I think it's been cleaned up pretty nice over the last few years. The new fencing that came in, much better tree trimming. So again, it's just a matter of aesthetics on the grass and weeds.
So is 1250 accurate for fertilization for City Hall then?
Yes, actually, it's 1,100, so I know there's 150 in there for miscellaneous in case we need some
So
additional.
how come it was so much less last year?
The only thing, and without not looking into the background of it, I believe that the two were separated. We combined Public Works facility and, plus this is a brand-new contract as well, so it may be a cost increase altogether, or it was separated
Some
under
increase.
different. I'm sorry?
It's a big increase.
Well, last year,
Well-
in Dan's defense, it did not say Public Works on
okay.
there, but
All
it
right,
was not
so-
a separate line item either. So is Public Works, is that something new? Have we started doing it at
No,
Public Works?
we've been doing it before. We just broke it out additionally as I went through the whole program based on it. It was a 3-year program, 3-year bid that we had. Now, this is a brand-new bid here, so I wanted to make sure everything was categorized properly and
So we might be
documented.
over budget this year, so what might happen. But Dan will have to look at that, see what the increase was for.
Yeah, because if you add up all the fertilization costs, it's pretty substantial.
The entire program is $20,300.
That includes detention too,
That
correct?
includes detention, also includes the water plants. Basically, the Public Works facility itself is $768. Or, the City Hall grounds is another $325. 75th Street is $11,000. tree fertilization on 75th Street is $850. The detention and cul-de-sacs is another $6,600. So
What does
we
that
do have
mean?
to break down.
What does the cul-de-sacs mean?
Cul-de-sacs, there's certain islands, I believe we have-
Oh, you said that they have like the
Yeah, they have a-
island around it,
Yeah, they have
yes.
a
Okay.
green, little
Yeah,
green patch
little
right in the
spots,
middle of the
gotcha.
cul-de-sac.
Yes. So everything has been identified. Again, the total program cost is $20,289, and there's several different items for that.
So if we're looking at the fertilization 75th Street, I know we already talked about this, but the first four, fertilization City Hall, tree fertilization and detention retention facility fertilization, does anybody have any issues with these? So we'll keep them in?
Why is it as a, not a maintenance item?
You don't have to do it, you just let the weeds grow.
Okay.
We actually didn't do the detention basins, I think last year, I
Last
think
year was
Alderman
the first
Belke
year, I
might have,
think it was.
raised that. You have a couple detention basins and residents, I think, contacted you.
How many detention basins get this?
Of how many in
At least
counts?
4, I think.
There is one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9.
And it's all city property?
Yes,
9 detentions plus the cul-de-sac? Or just 9?
9. The cul-de-sacs are really de minimis in the grand scheme of things. 3 or 4 of them, with maybe $50 a piece at the best.
Those are not the ones Park District has to take care of, right?
No.
Those are not those.
No.
Those are ours.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think the Park District fertilizes.
I know they mow.
They won't.
I think
the
they
mold.
do.
Do they?
Yeah,
It's my understanding they do fertilize. I'm not sure. I know we tried to have them join our bandwagon, but it didn't work out.
Okay.
All right, hand tools, forestry, $1,000. Is that a pretty standard every year?
I want to say yes, and give me a moment. What line am I on?
4350, 30-43,
Same as last year.
okay.
What is that? What's a hand tool? Just
Saw.
buying miscellaneous things?
Correct.
It's like a budget for that, okay.
And the next several items through the 4,000 are all the same amounts as last year.
Okay, so tree replacement, residential 50/50 program, residential portion, 2,000. Residential 50/50 program, city portion, 4,000. And then 125 ash tree replacements for 62,500.
Now, do the replacement tree costs go up
Went down.
per tree?
The cost, from last year, I projected the cost will be the same. Last year, I believe we had 105,000. This year, we're
Yeah, but
proposing.
How many
last year was
trees?
for 300 trees, which came to about $350 a tree. This is 500 per tree for 125.
There's 4-inch and 3,
Dan, I thought because of the demand, the prices are going up a bit.
correct. If you recall, though, on the tree program, we also allocated additional monies. While the monies last year was 105,000, we requested city council for an additional 35,000, I believe it was, or close to it, due to the cost of the trees.
For planting,
Yes.
I don't know if that changes the average, though.
Well, that's
per
why
tree,
earlier on
yeah.
I was questioning why, I remember forestry, one was under, and then the tree
Correct.
trimming was over. The balance of those two was still under on the combined basis, but one was over and one was under, so
And
that's.
that's where a lot of commingling was completed through city council approval.
But Dan, the trees individually are more this year because of the supply and demand,
Same cost
obviously.
as last year is what I'm basing it on, so.
Cost. But last year they went up, then I know
Yes,
we're in a period
significantly.
now when all the municipalities and their ash trees are coming down. Obviously, the demand drove the price up.
Correct.
How many are left to replace then after this?
That's it.
That's it? This is the end of it?
Yes.
Okay.
And Dan, the description is ash tree. This is primarily ash trees, or is this, it could be other tree replacements, or is this literally for the ash trees we took down?
Should be no, this will be a combination of
Combination.
ash trees as well as other trees, which are probably accounts for about 40 additional trees that are within this 125 figure.
And we have markings on trees that we're monitoring too, right? So is that it played into effect too?
While, yes, while we feel that there's no need to be further concerned, spring is right around the corner, and that's gonna be the telltale of whether or not they need to come down or it'll be okay.
Anybody have any issues with these? Okay. All right, let's go down to 30-4359, streetlight request 14,000. This is, what do we budget every year? Four lights?
Correct.
Have we had any requests?
This year, one.
So what, so this is way too much
So
money
year-to-date.
in there.
This is the first year that we've only had one request. Other than that, we basically utilized the monies that was there.
So we could cut this in half easily.
I would agree.
Good idea.
Then why'd you put it there?
Well,
Yeah,
Dan
it's
can't
been-
predict the number of people. I mean,
Right.
you've been going through, and even if it's 3, sometimes it
Or
could be a
down.
little more expensive. You
Yeah.
try 4, but not all of them work out perfect math if there's longer conduit to run or things, but
Correct.
you don't have a list now at this point, so we certainly can,
With the exception of Portsmouth, obviously, which is a
which is a
different
separate
scale,
line,
yes.
but that's not anything here, so
Yes.
if
Want to
you,
leave 2 in there and just take
No,
out
thank you.
4,000? I mean, I don't know.
Should we budget?
10,000?
well, again, this is one of those, if a resident requests it, we would spend it. If they don't, it would be in the fund balance. So again, it's a neighborhood or service to residents that, again, this is really supply demand. If the residents want the light, they meet the criteria, we could put it in. So I don't think it hurts to leave the 14 in because we won't use it if
No,
there's not the request.
I don't agree to leave the 14 in.
Okay.
I agree to reduce it to a different number. What number that is, I'm not sure.
Well, this is the account, if you recall early on, when Ted was going through the numbers of this is where we're at, this is one of the accounts that I indicated that was budgeted at 115, projecting at 115, and through January 31st is at 58,000 total. That's be the light maintenance as well as the 14,000.
And the maintenance is the key thing. And while maintenance, knock on wood, has been okay this year, it could take a couple ground faults and we could have a couple $20,000 bills.
So the 14 will cut
That's
in
not
half?
including
No,
that.
I know, but I was
Yeah.
just referring back
So
to.
we can cut the 14 in half, it's fine.
Okay.
So we'll move it to 7,000. Everybody's all right with that?
Yeah, and it's first come, first serve anyway, right? And then if they don't
Yes.
get on the they will wait till next year.
Correct.
Okay, let's go to item 30-4374.
Back up to 4373, street sweeping. Just we're delineating different dates and everything here. Last year, we budgeted total of 35,000 versus the 42, so we're up 7,000, and currently through January 31st, and I would assume there wouldn't be any more sweeping before the end of the fiscal year. We're at 29,000, so we're even under what we budgeted last year, and this would seem to be an area that at least the council, I think, should discuss. Is this an area where you can cut out one of the sweeps or something like that to save any money, or?
We did actually cut back on our total sweeps, didn't we, Dan?
No, we're back to 4 sweeps at this point.
Particularly October 26th, more than doubled.
That's,
Well, why the cost so much, why did you budget so much higher than what we actually spent last year?
Because of the leaves.
I have to double check. I'm not sure if I believe there's still another invoice from Advanced Disposal that I haven't seen yet, and I have to double check that. And that is what I was referring to, basically a $6,500 cost for the disposal. Let me get back to you on that, but I believe that I know I had projected it based on that cost for a disposal, so that might not be in here. As well as last year, we should have been budgeting 42,000 as well, or 40,000 at least. For whatever reason, the math and the hours worked out this year where we came in budget. But I'm proposing $42,845 based on the sweeps, based on the hours, historic hours. Obviously, contingency we didn't use this year as well. And a disposal, again, I'm putting at $6,500.
At the October last year, you budgeted $5,000. I'm sure that's the heaviest time of the year. This year, 13,000.
I
It
think
looks
that
like
was,
there's 2 there, isn't there? October and November.
Or is that the period October 26th through November 16th?
Correct, that's one
That's the same-
period.
Same that was delineated last year. Last year
Are
was
we-
5,000.
we were light last year on that, Mike.
That's where, right.
Sorry, do we have a July sweep this year? For this past year?
We had one in May, June, and it looks like the fall sweep in November.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, to eliminate that July
Do we
one.
miss the September one?
I mean, obviously May, it's springtime, which is understandable, but what happens around July? I mean,
Clean up of the illegal fireworks, really,
Yeah.
is what it boils down to.
And the candy.
Said you had one in June, right?
I'm sorry?
You had one in May and then June?
It's May 11th through the 19th, pending. It may hit the June, so, but it's right in that ballpark, right? It's between May 11th and the 19th is what we targeted for.
I guess the question is, if we go back and take a look at either July 8th through 15th or September 14th through 21st, we're gonna have, if, like, the September 14th to 21st, we're gonna have a sweep immediately a month later.
Between, I'm sorry, Ted, between July, September and,
If you take a look at it, you know, can we do 3 sweeps instead of 4? The biggest and most important one is obviously October 26th to November because of the leaves.
keep in mind, right, and when we had this discussion, I believe it was about 3 years ago, where we had 3, we increased it to 4, so if the council is committed to 3, we have no problem.
What would you cut, Dan, the
I
July?
will cut the
it-
July
yeah.
then, yes,
Cut the July one?
yes.
What's an emergency sweep?
Emergency sweep,
We have a major storm come through?
yeah, that's one example, dirt on the road from whatever the case may be, maybe one of our operations, whatever the case is.
It looks like this year we did May, June, and July, and didn't do anything in September. We didn't do anything until November.
Which could very well be. All depends when the leaves start coming down, there's that window, which we, you know, try to target between.
So Dan, these dates aren't set, they're
Oh,
tentative.
they are set.
Oh, they
Well-
are set then.
Well, except for the fall, you know, fall may be a couple weeks
Yeah,
here and
that's-
there, yes. Which is the last one.
Should we just take out the July one?
Yeah, I was gonna
If
say.
you, July or the September one?
July one.
This year we took out the September one.
July, take July out, that's what I'm hearing, so.
I'm thinking, yeah.
May I ask a question? If you take out one of those sweeps, can you then increase your emergency by a little bit? So in case we go through the city and we see that it's, you know, we probably shouldn't have cut it, that we can utilize the emergency sweep if we just budget for it?
I would suggest leave it in July, then leave it July, and if we don't need it or require it, or wait till additional calls come in between that period, I mean, that's my suggestion, and
I mean, I'm just kind of thinking outside the box, that's all.
if we give it, if it's a contingency, we all get a little hesitant on, well, we're really scheduling another sweep, so if we're scheduling another sweep, and the council would like to leave it in there with the due caution of use it if you need it, you know, we'll make sure that we adhere to that.
Well, I think what I'm hearing, and we've done in the past, cutting the July sweep makes the most sense.
Okay.
Sounds like it to me, but
Well, I guess I'm still confused. Okay, so you think there's still an outstanding bill and it's about, so it's about 6,000, last year it was about 6,000, what, a sweep?
No, the 6,000 outstanding bill is from a disposal company for all the debris that was generated in the fall.
But that would bring it from the 29 where we're at to the 35 that we had budgeted, which got us back on budget. But you're saying we had 4, Paul, aren't you saying we had 4 last year, May, June, July, and the fall?
We paid 29,000, we paid 3 bills. June 1st, we paid 7,420. August 3rd, we paid 6,790, and December 21st, we paid 14,792.
So we only did 3 sweeps, so we've
Correct.
got another one in here, so we have a 4th one in here.
So you
Now,
could,
on this
Now,
budget,
right, yeah.
Correct.
so
Whereas
you
we
can
only
take
did
one out
3
and then be
last
back
year.
on the same,
We'd
with
be
the
back
same
at the
budget
same
as last
numbers
year.
last year, right?
And there's still 6,500 in disposal.
Right,
on
that's
this
the
line
same
item.
amount, yeah.
So, are we,
Last year we had 4 sweeps scheduled too, so that's telling me that we only used 3 of them this year because of the September being so close, and that the leaves were still on the trees, that we waited to use the one for later on then.
So why not take out September?
It's a hit and miss. We have an early fall sometime.
I don't think it's ever that early, September. That's when kids are just going back to
Well,
school.
why not give Dan the discretion to see how
Right,
things
just
go? If you
pick
don't
your
need it
three.
if you don't need it in July, don't do July.
That's fine,
And then
yeah.
if you see you need it in September,
the
you do it
other.
in September.
And then we'll make that one just sort of a floating
Yeah, pick your
season.
3.
Do an
so for the
or.
document, I'll just take out the July and we'll go on the discretion and see what happens.
Okay.
Good.
30-4374, drainage assistant projects for 43,000.
Now, keep in mind, there's this item here, and I'm gonna, you know, obviously, it's not included in here, but the drainage assistant projects is basically the rear yard drainage projects. Recently, the committee was given a task from the city council in respect to increasing this program. Staff is, the committee has basically met on this issue, and we're requesting that this budget item be increased to $80,000.
That's our street sweep.
Basically,
25,000?
basically what we were looking at,
And last year was 36,000 just for,
right, but what we were looking at was, we were looking at those projects where we have several projects in the city of Darien where the rear yard drainage issue could be up to 20-something thousand dollars. We've been doing everything in the $6,000 or $7,000 range. And we spent 3 meetings on this in terms of looking at the data for this. And we were looking at the city cost versus the resident cost. And we decided to create different levels. We have a level 1, a level 2.
That's it.
And we thought it was fair to balance out the percentage of the city paid versus what the resident paid. We currently have one project in the city. What are we estimating that project to be, Dan? About, he's over $20,000 for that one project?
Correct, and what Alderman Marchese is referring to is there's several unique situations. In one particular case, we have a resident that basically could face up to $15,000 of his own monies to be able to correct this drainage concern.
Is the city causing the drainage problem?
The answer is no.
Okay.
But
So-
none,
But there's
but
been
none of the
past-
residents are willing to contribute along with him.
Well, nobody contributed to my, drainage problems in my yard.
Well,
I had to
this-
fix it,
Well,
and I paid for my own drainage project on my private property.
again, I want to make sure that this program is for continuous ponding or where relief cannot be, stormwater cannot relieve itself, whether it's through mechanical means or infrastructure that's not there. A lot of these homes that were, when they were built pre-stormwater ordinance. They were basically built with lack of engineering. And basically these residents have, were given somewhat of a hole in their yard, or all the drainage was guided towards them, to which case would cause erosion. A lot of the drainage projects that we've done over the years, we've used the funding for this every year, even came back to the city council, I believe 2 years ago. So the funding that's allocated right now, we've utilized it. The way it works currently is the city will contribute up to $5,000 for any rear yard drainage project, provided that the residents give the first $1,000. This year we did, I believe, 6 or 7 projects as well. All the projects have been very successful. They've helped a lot. What the committee looked at was 2 different levels of funding. Levels basically are on a percentage, which would either be, comes out to 60% or 75%. The caps of it start out basically at $5,000, and at the 75% level is up to $20,000. So, for example,
So the city, you want the city to contribute up to $20,000 for one person,
no,
for one resident?
let me break that down a little further, explaining that. Obviously, you haven't seen all that information. It's a lot of spreadsheets that we've run through. On a proposed project cost of $20,000, pending the number of participants, and let's take the assumption that there's only one participant, they would pay the first $1,000. The first $1,000, now with the difference, is now $19,000. The city cost on this would be $14,250. The residents' portion would be $4,750. This, again, this is based on one participant. The more participants, if we have 10 participants, it will be $475, whereas, again, the cost share to the city would be the same. So this system.
Same at the 14,000
Yes.
in that, okay.
Again, this is at a 75% level funding from $5,000 up to $20,000. Once we hit the $20,000 mark, basically $20,100 up to a limit on this one of $50,000. The percentage is 60%. So I'm gonna give two quick examples here. First one is 20,000, I'll call it 21,000. Based on 21,000 with one participant, minus the thousand, now the first $1,000, basically we have the $19,000, $20,000 balance, of which the city would be at 12,000 and the residents, this one resident would be $8,000. Based on a cost of $50,000, $1,000 deductible brings it down to $49,000 for the difference, of which the city will be contributing $29,400, and the one person again will be contributing $19,600. Currently, we have 3 projects of a magnitude of approximately $14,000 to $20,000 the city could be potentially contributing to. In addition to usually the 5 to 7 projects that we have annually. So that's why we're looking for the increase to go to 72.
So I guess,
75.
I guess I wanted to back up, because what happened is, actually, we've had 2 residents speak on this matter, and I've gotten emails for some others. But what it was, these residents are having issues in their backyard specifically. And although the city already has a program in place, we wanted to discuss if there was a way to enhance what we already offered them. And the council thought it was a good idea, but they didn't like the fact that the numbers were stuck. They wanted more of a percentage of the total cost, and the city, it should be a sliding scale with a percent.
Tina, you mean the committee? I'm sorry, you said council. The committee, okay, just,
The council wanted the committee to review it.
Okay, got
and
it.
to do
Okay.
it more on a percentage basis. So we already had the committee already had the task of revisiting this program. So there was a special meeting held on this item alone that was held on February 16th, where some residents did show up. And Dan presented 3 different ideas to the committee. There was 3 aldermen there, and I attended as well. And, you know, we reviewed the 3 different policies and ended up saying that alternative 2 was something that we wanted to bring back to the full council, and it had the full support of the four people. What this program does, okay, is these residents that have the problem, I've noticed there's a common denominator. So they have water issues pooling in their backyard that are eroding their garages in this case, or some of the structures. Now, they aren't going to fix those structures because they know the water problem is not going away, and it's too costly to do all on their own. These were situations that weren't horrible. They always had the problem, but it's gotten worse over the years due to other elements that are not their fault, such as new construction going in around them, regrading around them. So the problem remains that they're in a stuck situation, and it's only hurting the property value because their structures are eroding away and they will not fix them. So this is one thing that we thought the city could revisit and help in a little bit of a way, and enhance the community, because we don't want, you know, basically structures looking like they're falling apart.
Is 72,000 going to be enough for these projects?
We knew that we would, by setting the figure at 72,000, we would have enough money in the budget for most of those smaller projects were in the area of $5,000 to $7,000. What was it, about 7,200?
Correct.
So we knew that we were going to get those. Those are the majority of our projects. But we wanted to look at this where we would be able to do at least 1 to 2 of those projects, possibly 3 a year of the larger ones, and be more assistance to the residents. We also knew, though, that if we didn't, I think with the 72, we were incorporating the possibility of having 3, correct, Dan?
Correct, yes.
that if we only did 2 of those 3, though, we would have more money available for the smaller projects, the $5,000 to $7,200 projects. We had this one particular resident, and we were especially concerned